101 FM, Smiths Falls and the Valley. City News Time, 9 o'clock.
Number one for local news in Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News, now on 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
It's Wednesday, May 18th. Good morning. I'm Andrew Boyle. Right now in Ottawa and in Smiths Falls, 9 degrees. Here's what's making news in Ottawa and the Valley. It's day 2 of the Royal Tour of Canada. It sees Prince Charles and his wife Camilla in Ottawa. Indigenous reconciliation is in the spotlight.
The Prince of Wales and Duchess of Cornwall will begin their day with a service at Ottawa's Ukrainian Orthodox Cathedral. Day 2 will end with a Platinum Jubilee reception at Rideau Hall. And the president of the Métis National Council, who will be at that reception, has said she intends to make a request for an apology from the Queen for the monarchy's role in residential schools. This also comes 1 year after a BC First Nation first announced the discovery of the remains of 215 children outside the former Kamloops Indian residential school. Speaking yesterday, Prince Charles talked about the vital process of reconciliation, which is a major focus of the Royal Canadian Tour.
Acknowledging, reconciling, and striving to do better. It is a process that starts with listening.
The Royals will wrap up their tour tomorrow in the Northwest Territories. Laura Carney, City News.
City News Time, 9:01, and now your forecast with meteorologist Jill Taylor.
Plenty of sunshine for most areas today and a bit warmer too. The high 19 degrees. Showers possible late tonight, a low near 7, and tomorrow some showers at times. The high again about 19 degrees. That's the high today, 19.
And right now in Ottawa, it's 9 degrees. The Transit Commission meets in about a half an hour from now, and we could see just how much transit revenue was lost during the Freedom Convoy occupation earlier this year. Here's City News reporter Perushka Gopalkista.
Now, there's not too many outstanding items on today's agenda, but according to the Transit's first quarter budget report, we are seeing large losses in revenue stemming from 2 major events: the convoy occupation back in February and also 2.5 years of the COVID-19 pandemic. The budget reveals that the occupation that lasted for nearly a month resulted in a deficit of just over $4 million. Another item on the agenda is an OC Transport report from 2021 that looks at how the pandemic affected ridership levels, which according to the report seems to have significantly declined since before the pandemic. Now the Transit Commission will meet at 9:30 this morning. Perushka Gopalkista, City News.
City News Time, 9:02. A new report out says digital technology has become so widespread at such a rapid pace, Canadians have little idea what information is being collected about them or how that information is being used.
The report by David Lyon, former director of the Surveillance Study Centre at Queen's University, says regulations have not evolved quickly enough to keep up with the ever-changing technologies. It highlights a need for transparency in data collection and analysis, as well as new digital rights and means of ensuring justice for Canadians. It also argues that some, such as women, Black people, and Indigenous groups, are more exposed to surveillance than others. Emily Javeski, The Canadian Press.
And StatsCan says the annual pace of inflation crept up in April. The cost of nearly everything at the grocery store climbed even higher. The agency says the consumer price index for April rose 6.8%. That rate the highest since January of 1991, when the rate was 6.9. Results for April come as Canadians paid 9.7% more from food or for food brought in stores in April compared with 1 year ago. That is the largest increase since 1981. I'm Andrew Boyle for News Anytime. Follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
Good, bad, or complicated.
There's no news in Ottawa and the Valley he won't talk about.
It's the Rob Snow Show on Rogers TV and City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Yeah, let's just jump right into it. Busy news day. Gonna do our best to keep you right up to date because that's what we do around here. Coming up, your chance to score a political fix. We have some great political commentators on the show this morning. Carl Belanger, the head of Traction Strategies. Kate Harrison, vice chair at SUMA. A lot of meat on the political bone these days. We're about halfway through the Ontario election campaign. The debates have all been held. It's back on the hustings for the candidates today. Andrea Horvath is headed our way. We were hoping to get her on the show this morning, but the timing just wasn't working in our favor. She's in Kingston this morning, talking up the NDP's plan for pharmacare, then heads to Smiths Falls, which is well, that's a kind of a curious stop to me. She's going to visit the campaign office in the riding of Lanark-Frontenac-Kingston, which was held by Randy Hillier. He was elected 4 years ago when this riding was first created. Hillier's old riding was Lanark-Frontenac-Lennox-Addington. That doesn't exist anymore. So he was elected to this new riding as the PC MPP, but you remember Doug Ford gave him the boot in 2019. So he was sitting as an independent and then announced he's not going to run in this election. So there's no incumbent there. I don't know how the NDP fortunes stack up there. Hillier won that riding as a PC candidate by more than 10,000 votes the last time out. But the NDP candidate did come in second. John Jordan is the PC candidate in that riding. Maybe he has the inside track because his father was the PC MPP for Lanark-Renfrew between 1990 and 1999. Drew Cumpson, the NDP candidate, quadriplegic and a disability rights advocate. So that is an interesting stop for Horvath today. Then later, she rolls into Ottawa, where I think the two most promising ridings for the New Democrats would be Ottawa West Nepean and Ottawa Centre. The NDP already holds Ottawa Centre and almost won Ottawa West Nepean 4 years ago. It was this close. It was this close. Stephen Del Duca, the Liberal leader, making 3 stops today, starts the day in Toronto. Then he will ride a GO train in Burlington. So you want to be a politician, all aboard the GO train. Buck a ride. And then he's in London, Ontario later today. Ford campaign in Hamilton at 11 o'clock. I don't know what that's about. Not much to report on the polling front. Main Street for iPolitics this morning, still the PCs with a healthy lead. PCs 37, Liberals 27, NDP 23. And it has Ford on track to win an even bigger majority government than 4 years ago. Advanced polls open tomorrow. In addition to talking about the Ontario election with our panelists, we'll dig into all the latest news about the Conservative Party leadership race. Big news today. Pierre Poilievre is invested in a Bitcoin ETF, as disclosed to the ethics commissioner, but nevertheless, Poilievre accused this morning of being in a conflict of interest, that he is in effect promoting Bitcoin while invested in Bitcoin. But we'll have more on that later. It is a huge day in Alberta politics. This could be the last day for Jason Kenney as Premier of Alberta. Can you even imagine it? The results of his leadership review will be released later today. And if he does not secure 50% support, he is done. Out. Gone. He says 50% plus one, and I'm not going anywhere. And I will lead the UCP into the next provincial election. And right now, winning that election against Rachel Notley and the NDP in Alberta, no sure thing. What a stunning end that would be for Jason Kenney, who left Ottawa to save Alberta from the lefties. Blew up 2 parties, including the legacy PC Party of Alberta, created a brand new party, ran for the leadership of the party, and won, ran in the general election, and won that too in convincing fashion. But then along came COVID, and he couldn't please anyone. The party promises to have it all wrapped up by the time the big show begins. That's the hockey game. The other, more important, some would say. Battle of Alberta, Calgary Flames, Edmonton Oilers in Calgary tonight, game one of their second round NHL playoff series. So politics, yeah, we got you covered on that this morning. Also on our program, the latest on the inflation rate, released 40 minutes ago. I've spent the last 40 minutes looking at it. Let me give you some of the numbers. It's a shocker to the upside. It's stronger than what the economists were expecting. The consensus, what the economists have been looking for, was an annual inflation rate of 6.3%. This morning, it came in at 6.8%. 6.8%. That's the April number. And it's even stronger than the month before. It was 6.7% in March. StatsCan says the highest number was the result of higher food and shelter prices. So, as long as you don't need a roof over your head or food to eat, there's nothing to worry about when it comes to inflation. Gas prices increased, but at a slower pace. One wonders if that will be the same when this report comes out next month, since gas prices these days seem to leap not by pennies, but rather by nickels and dimes overnight. With each passing month, under Justin Trudeau's watch, Canadians are losing their purchasing power. It is highlighted, noted in this report from Statistics Canada this morning. Consumer prices up 6.8%, wages up 3.3%. And you wonder why people are on strike? Get used to it. Some other details in this morning's inflation report. Overall food prices up 9.7%. That's the largest increase since September of 1981. 81. I was 10. David's parents were in junior high school. Indulge me. Number one song on the hit parade, September of 1981, Endless Love by Lionel Richie and Diana Ross. Number one at the box office, Body Heat, an erotic thriller starring William Hurt and Kathleen Turner. A ticket to the movies in 1981, Google tells me $2.80 U.S. There's been some inflation on that item as well, I think. Back to the inflation picture in this morning's report. Prices for fresh fruit up 10%. Fresh vegetables up 8.2%. Meat prices, you don't want to know, up 10.1%. Bread up 12%. Pasta up almost 20%. Cereal up 14%. Coffee up almost 14%. Overall shelter costs up 7.4%. And that's a home heating story with natural gas as a home heating fuel up 22%. Remember, we're talking about April weather, okay? It snowed in April. Other home heating fuel prices up 64%. Propane. Hey, thanks for the carbon tax, buddy. Gasoline prices are up 36% year over year. Vehicle prices are up 7.5%. Meals in restaurants up 6.6%. Hey, you want to save some money? There were some lower prices. If you were shopping for an RV or an outboard motor, down 3% between March and April. And travel tours, down 12% month over month. Provincially, strongest inflation rate in the country among all the provinces. Prince Edward Island up 8.9%. 8.9%. My goodness. Weakest inflation in Saskatchewan, up 5.7%. Ontario's inflation rate 6.9%. Oil prices, just in case you're wondering this morning, up 2%. West Texas Intermediate trading at $114 U.S. a barrel. Gas prices hitting new records across the city, $2.10 a liter. Someone make it stop. I want off this ride. And to talk about the inflation report in just a few minutes from now with Philip Cross. He's with the Macdonald-Laurier Institute, spent 36 years at StatsCan, the last few years as its chief economic analyst. That's coming right up, and we'll do the Talk Back Hour. We're talking conservative politics this morning. Picture it. The year is 2025. And it's Prime Minister Pierre Poilievre. What do you think of that idea? Pierre Poilievre, as Prime Minister of Canada, brings a smile to the face of some. Others recoil in disgust, hide under the bed in the fetal position. What do you think of the idea? Someday in the future, in Canada, we're governed by Prime Minister Pierre Poilievre. We'll get into that right after the 10 o'clock news, 750-1310. Rob Snow Show, City News.
The sun is calling, change with the warning. Oh, I won't win anything if I give everything.
I was so excited when I found out that I was given this grant to be able to make this concert, because I knew it was going to be the first opportunity that I was able to play these songs for others. You know, this album was recorded really, truly in isolation. Like everybody else, we were locked down for a bit. So you're going to see, I think, the joy of playing live, of being together.
For me, as someone who owns a business in Ottawa that's directly working with music, I own a recording studio, it is important because it gives a sense of confidence in terms of having support from a lot of different places. We all know in Canada, there are all kinds of city, provincial, and federal people who provide funding for artists, and just seeing how invested Ottawa is and expanding the reputation of Ottawa as a music and entertainment city, running a business in that city, it makes you just feel better that someone's going to support you, help you, and have your back.
Well, firstly, I'm seeing friends that I haven't seen in 2 years, so that is kind of stabbing me in the heart a little bit, but I'm also just so happy to be able to make art with all of these friends again. And I've been treated like an absolute rock star from the moment I just kind of knocked on the door and said, hey, can I unload my gear? Everybody's so helpful, and you're just used to kind of dragging all your stuff around, and it's such a hard business to be in. So this is a dream come true for any local artist who gets to participate in a series like this.
Oh, I feel like I need to keep pinching myself. It's an amazing experience and opportunity for us, so thank you so much. It's been a long couple months. Our last show was in December. This is the first time we've actually been in the same room together since. So it's really an amazing opportunity for us, and the beautiful theater, and to have Rogers here, and thank you, Mike, and so it's a dream come true.
I'm here with one of my best friends, Alex, and we haven't performed in almost 2 years because of COVID. And it feels really good to be back on a big stage like Meridian, and I'm really honored that you guys invited me here today.
Having an organization that lets the artists do their thing with such a range of styles and influence, and to kind of have that ability to meet the public and to meet the people who would listen to them, can't be overstated. So super excited about it. I know a lot of musicians in town and a lot of music lovers in town who are really excited about it too. So I mean, it's an event in which there's talk, you know, there's a lot of buzz around it, and I wouldn't be surprised if it goes on for a long time and does a lot of great things for local musicians and connecting them with the listeners that love them.
The Rob Snow Show returns
on Rogers TV and City News, 101.1 FM
and 1310 AM.
Okay, let's get instant analysis of one of the big news stories this morning, and that's the Consumer Price Index for April, also known as the annual inflation rate, released at 8:30 this morning. It's 6.8%. That's a year-over-year number, 6.8%. As we welcome back to the Rob Snow Show, from the Macdonald-Laurier Institute, spent 36 years at Statistics Canada, the last few years as its chief economic analyst. Philip Cross is back with us on City News on the road this morning. Good morning.
Good morning, Rob. Thanks for having me on.
You're blessed. You can still afford to drive a car.
Well, rather a lot. I mean, I was telling my wife the other day, I was filling up. Pumps were being used, and that's part of why inflation stays high. Is consumers haven't said uncle yet. They haven't cut back on their spending, and at the end of the day, that really is the Bank of Canada's only tool to lower inflation, is to destroy demand, to get people to spend less, because they can't really improve supply in the short term. So, that really is one of the problems why inflation is staying high.
Well, that's an interesting observation, because one of the stories coming out of the pandemic was, we had stories about pent-up demand and the incredible increase in the savings rate. So maybe there's this battle happening between inflation and consumers with, more money than they know what to do with, Philip.
Yeah, and I think that's one reason why I think interest rates have risen faster than people expected, and why, frankly, I think they're going to have to rise a lot more, is that, as you say, consumers have, economists can't be sure, but the estimates are all in the hundreds of billions of savings left over from the pandemic. So that, consumers are in a position where they'll be able to fight this rising cost of living and rising interest rates for a while. So it may be a lot harder to get consumers to stop spending than we thought.
You've said in the past, when we've had you on, that the CPI may not be the most accurate reflection of the true increase in the cost of living, but we're getting close to a 7% number now. What do you think? Are we getting closer to reflecting the true increases in the cost of living?
Well, we'll be closer next month. One of the interesting things in this month's release was StatCan said that starting next month, they're going to include used car prices in the CPI. And used car inflation has been a big contributor to inflation in the U.S. Used car prices are captured in the U.S. CPI, and they're running about 35% compared to about 10% for new car prices. Right now, StatCan is measuring used car prices by just assuming they're the same as new cars. And we've seen in the U.S., and there's some anecdotal evidence here in Canada, that used car inflation is running a lot higher because of the shortage of vehicles in across the world, really. So, we'll see an improvement in that next month. But we also know, as I think everybody is aware, gas prices really jumped sharply in May. So I don't think there's any doubt that the CPI is going to jump over 7% in May.
You think the May number will be stronger when this report comes out a month from now?
Oh, very much so, because gas prices, it's hard to remember as you drive by the pump and you see $2.10 or $2.09, but gas prices actually fell in April. So they exerted a slight dampening effect. We're going to see a sharp reversal in that in June. We're going to see the used car prices integrated. So there's going to be a lot of upward pressure. We're going to see unrelenting increases in other areas like food and housing. So, the inflation is really rampant at the moment.
Okay. Mortgage interest costs is captured in the CPI. The StatsCan has what's called the Mortgage Index Cost Index. It was up month over month, just 0.2%, but still, that's the first time it's been up since April of 2020, so in 2 years. And I would suspect, just given what's happening with mortgage rates, that may continue to climb as well. What do you think, Philip?
Oh, very much so. I mean, that component is measured uses a moving average to smooth it out. So once it's on an upward trajectory, and given that mortgage rates are continuing to increase, that's guaranteed to increase for several months to come. We are seeing a little bit of sign in the new housing prices that higher interest rates are starting to dampen price increases, but we're not seeing a major correction yet. Until housing prices start to come down substantially, we're going to see overall everything else related to housing is rising. As you say, mortgage costs are rising. Stackhand noted that the cost of heating homes and cooling homes is up substantially. So running a home is becoming really expensive.
Okay. It also notes the cost of living, CPI, is not, wages are not keeping up with the inflation rate. Average hourly wages up 3.3% on a year-over-year basis. What are you anticipating on the wage front? What are you watching for there?
What I'm watching for is signs that people are demanding higher wages, that the incumbent workers, we know that people who are being newly hired, their wages are up about 10%. So people who are already in jobs, they're seeing new hires, their wages go up substantially. They're seeing their purchasing power fall rapidly. So I'm quite worried that workers are going to start demanding much higher wages. If that happens, then inflation really starts to become entrenched. We get into what's called a wage and price spiral, and then we're going to interest rate hikes to be. That's what I'm watching. I'm hoping we can avoid that. So far, we largely have, but every month that goes by that prices increase, workers are going to be more and more tempted to demand higher wages.
How effective do you think monetary policy can be at taming inflation? Interest rate hikes can't stop a war in Ukraine. Interest rate hikes can't open a port in China or open a factory in China.
Right.
There are limits to monetary policy.
There are limits to what it can do on the supply side, but it's going to be 100% effective on the demand side. It may be painful. It may take considerable interest rate increases, but history has shown that banks who are determined to rein in inflation, they can do it every time. I mean, as I say, the situation today for inflation is nowhere near as intractable as it was in the 70s. And in the 70s, in 1979, 80, ultimately central banks wrestled inflation to the ground, not just here, but we've seen this in country after country, time after time. So I have no doubt that central banks, they're behind the ball. They've been slow to recognize inflation for what it is, and we'll all pay for that mistake, but they will ultimately triumph in this battle.
Okay. Thank you, Philip Cross.
Thank you.
Great to hear from you from the Macdonald-Laurier Institute, 36 years at StatsCan, former Chief Economic Analyst, Statistics Canada. The news coming up, then your political fix on the Rob Snow Show on City News.
News in Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News, now on 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
It's Wednesday, May 18th. Good morning. I'm Andrew Boyle. Right now in Ottawa, 10 degrees, Smiths Falls 9, and here's what's making news this hour. Transit Commission is just getting underway at City Hall this half hour with the cost to transit of the occupation and also COVID measures that were in place at the start of the year, dominating at least a portion of the agenda. Food costs have increased year over year, April to April, almost 10%. That on top of increased costs for various goods and services led to an overall hit to your budget of 6.8% year over year in April. That is the highest since January of 1991. Royal Tour Ottawa portion includes a stop at the National War Memorial on Elgin. The Prince of Wales and his wife will lay a wreath at that monument. That is scheduled for 10:50 this morning. The Politicians Tour provincial election campaign will include an NDP swing through the region. Andrea Horvath making stops today in Smiths Falls. That's about 11:30 this morning, and then in Ottawa about 1:30. City News Time, 9:31. I'm Andrew Boyle for News Anytime. Follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
He's a pillar of community opinion.
The Rob Snow Show returns
on Rogers TV and City News.
101.1 FM
and 1310 AM.
It's time to score. Your political fix. Joining us momentarily, just getting her on the phone right now, will be Kate Harrison, Vice Chair of Summa Strategies, but we have Carl Belanger has joined us on the line. He is the head of Traction Strategies, and he's usually calling us from his palatial estate deep in the woods of West Quebec, up in the Gatineau Hills. Carl, good morning. How are you?
Good morning, Rob.
How are the flies?
You know what? It was pretty intense after the heat that we got and the big rains that we got.
Yeah.
They're enthusiastic right now.
Yeah, they're hungry. They're hungry right now. Yeah. Kate Harrison has joined us on the line. Good morning, Kate.
Good morning. No flies on me.
Hey. Shelter costs and the inflation rate, the strongest from StatsCan since September of 1981. Now, I mentioned September of 1981. I would have been going into the 5th grade. 10 years old. 10 years old, yeah, but 4th, 5th grade, something like that. 1981. Were you around in 1981, Carl? 1981? 1981? 6? 6 years old? Yeah, okay. Holy smokes. Kate?
Do you really want the answer to that question?
Were you with us?
I don't think I was even a thought.
Not even a thought. Wow, holy smokes. 1981, my gosh.
I'm an 88 baby, so...
88, wow, holy cow.
So
it's
she
tough,
didn't suffer
though.
through it, Rob, like us, She didn't suffer through it like we did.
That makes me the old wise man, I guess, right? But I mean, it's tough out there. Bread prices up 12%, pasta up 20%, rice, very basic foodstuffs up 7%, meat, coffee, cereal. It's a really tough time right now, and you just have to wonder how much more the consumer is going to take, Canadians will take, before they start demanding some accountability from politicians about the rising cost of living. And why don't we start right there, because there are 15 days to go in the Ontario election. Cost of living is certainly a big issue, maybe the issue in this election campaign. There was a leaders debate this week. What are your takeaways from the debate, Kate? I'm sure you watched it. What do you take away from the Ontario leaders debate?
Yeah, I think there needed to be a moment for either Andrea Horwath or Stephen Del Duca to really put Ford up against a wall and hold his feet to the fire. And I don't think that moment ever really came to be for either of them. So he's had this lead in the campaign for the majority of the RIP period. It's, perhaps as much as a double-digit lead over the Ontario Liberals, depending on which poll you look at. And I think there needed to be a bit of a breakout moment in order for there to be a real change post-debate in either the NDP or the Liberals' favor. And it seemed like they spent a little bit more time kind of attacking one another than really ganging up on Ford. So I actually think he came across pretty Teflon in that debate. Nothing was really sticking to him.
Okay.
And he presented, as he normally does, pretty authentically. Perhaps, not the most polished, but that's also not really what his brand has been to date. So he held his own. It's tough to do that when you've got everybody beating up on you. But I think there was an opportunity missed by the opposition to try and move the needle.
Okay. What do you take away from that debate, the leaders' debate for Ontario, Carl?
Well, Kate is right that there was no knockout blow by the opposition. There was no turning point. In fact, the debate was not a turning point. And in that sense, Doug Ford probably won the night because he stayed afloat the entire night, and he was his folksy self, and he was pushed here and there on COVID and a few things on cost of living, but nothing major, nothing to make an impression, nothing to move the needle, as Kate said, and frankly, it was kind of a lackluster debate. I've seen more interesting debate, but made me think that maybe we should have had a couple of sad trombones and
need some paddles and sad trombones,
questions about best food and favorite TV.
What are you binging? Yes, what are you binging?
So the opposition. I mean, it's not too late for the opposition to turn this thing around, but it's going to be difficult for the Liberals because their vote doesn't appear to be efficient at all. At this point, and they're starting with 7 seats. So what's the path to power? I don't see one. The NDP has one, but they would need the stars to line up pretty good, and they're not quite lining up yet. They may. And finally, a note on Green Party leader Mike Schreiner. Just by being there, he was a winner of the night.
That's our highlight of the night here on the Rob Snow Show. Is this moment here? Let's listen to this here.
Have you talked to a nurse lately? Have you talked to a nurse about how disrespected they feel? How overworked and underpaid and underappreciated they are? How insulted they feel being called heroes and then essentially having their wages cut by having them frozen? Mr. Ford, if you want to build capacity in our healthcare system, you have to make sure you invest in the people who deliver that care.
That was the heaviest blow landed of the night. It didn't knock Ford out, obviously, but I was wondering. I wanted to run this by you. If you're Del Duca, if you're Horwath, are you thanking Mike Schreiner? Well, maybe I didn't get to land that blow, but I'm glad he did, and maybe I can benefit from it. What do you think, Kate?
No, I don't think so, because Schreiner, as you pointed out, first time on the stage. So in that sense, the expectations were pretty much non-existent. It's the first time folks have really been able to get a good look at him and what he has to offer. If you are firmly in the camp of getting Ford out of office, I think the Green Party did the best job at drawing a contrast between what they're going to put forward for voters and what the government already has on the table. So I think, there's actually a risk here for the NDP and the Liberals to have some of that vote bleed green. I think Schreiner was actually pretty smart in the debate to highlight the couple of ridings that, he's particularly focused on. I think he's smart about this. We're not going to see a green sweep by any stretch of the imagination, but I suspect that is where those votes will come from, will be from perhaps disaffected NDP voters who don't want to give Andrea Horwath a fourth kick at the can and folks that are pretty uninspired by Stephen Del Duca. So I don't think I'd be thanking Mike Schreiner. I think I'd be trying to look over the shoulder of his notes.
I was thinking about you, Carl, when Stephen Del Duca was trying to do a Jack Layton impersonation when he brought up the attendance record of the premier in the legislature at 82%, but imitation's the serious form of flattery. It didn't come off. He tried to pull it off, but it was kind of sad.
it was kind of cringy, to be honest, because he was using the exact same words. And I don't know if he knew about that line.
Oh, he must
He is
have.
the one recycling, or if it's a staffer who fed it to him. But, there was many problems. The recycling the line is one thing. But the whole point is about attendance. And Del Duca's not at Queen's Park. So it's really hard to lecture others about that. I don't know. It didn't work.
Didn't work.
And that was kind of a sad moment. I agree with you there.
Okay.
The other thing I would just add on that is it doesn't land when the leader that you're accusing of doing this is in front of cameras every single day for the last 2.5 years as a result of the pandemic. Like, you can critique Doug Ford about a lot of things. I say that as a conservative. His accessibility and the media is really not one of those things. He was doing those press conferences well after Justin Trudeau, well after a number of other premiers. So it just doesn't land because I think people, generally speaking, whether you like Ford or not, recognize that he has made himself pretty available.
All right. So look, it's interesting. I've been following the Main Street polling that's updated every morning on iPolitics, and it's interesting because the Liberals appear to have the lead in popular support, maybe even pulling away. But to Carl's point on the efficiency of the vote, they would, according to the seat projection from Keto Maggie, they would still finish in third place. And the NDP would still be the official opposition. So they're still duking it out here. Let's go to this part of the debate. This is Andrea Horwath versus Stephen Del Duca.
If you need prostate surgery in this province, only 30% are able to get it on time. That's not good enough in a province like ours.
We have
to repeal Bill 124.
For all kinds of procedures.
Again, Ms. Horwath, respectfully, we're not here tonight to fight the 2018 election all over again.
You love to leave all that stuff in the rear view mirror.
There are new challenges facing
you left a wreck behind you, and you have to step up and take some responsibility for that, Mr. Del Duca.
There are new challenges.
Where were you when all these decisions were being made? Were you out getting a coffee at the cabinet table?
Ms. Horwath,
getting a coffee. Okay. I thought, did she have a great night? She didn't have a great night, but that was her best moment of the night, I thought. But how do you assess this battle for second place, this so-called Liberal Democrat primary that we're witnessing here, Carl? What's happening here?
Well, first thing is that if we have a battle for second place, is because neither of the party has been able to convince voters that it was time to throw the bombs out. They're not yet convinced, or in a civic fashion, that they would line up behind one or the other. Now, this may yet happen. We've seen this in 2015 when the Liberals leaped the NDP, and everybody, there was an anybody but conservative movement that happened. It could still happen, but right now the numbers don't suggest it's happening. I think the Liberals have a tougher path, as I said, for a couple of reasons. One of them is that they appear to be stalled. They had the first good week, they were creative, and then they ran into all kinds of problems that campaigns that don't have a good organization or any depth run into. Candidates that were not properly vetted, they have to resign. They're not running a full slate for the first time since 1981. This is the Liberal Party of Ontario we're talking about.
Yep.
And they have 7 seats, and they seem to lack organization across the province, except perhaps the GTA and part of Eastern Ontario. Meanwhile, the NDP won 40 seats, and there were 11 races that were, within 5% for the NDP to win. So if they can flip those seats, and if a couple of other stars lined up, maybe the Liberals pick up a handful of Tory seats in the GTA, and maybe, the New Blue in the Ontario Party make gains here and there to kind of erode the Tory vote, maybe the stars are lined up for a path to the NDP to win. Right now, it's still a tough, a long shot, but it's there. For the Liberals, I don't see it.
Okay, interesting. What do you think, Kate?
Yeah, it's really hard to position yourself as an agent of change when this is your fourth election, and I think Andrea Horwath struggles with that. I think we probably saw her last election night debate. It would really surprise me if she was around come the next election. And Stephen Del Duca suffers from a similar problem. People know that he was a part of this Wynne government. He doesn't have kind of the novelty factor of being an outsider to politics. He's played this game for a long time. So in that sense, Ford, despite being in the office and being in the chair, still has a bit of an outsider feel to the traditional political establishment. So it's really hard to try and mount a case for change when the chief spokespeople doing that don't really embody that themselves. So I think that's a challenge for both of them. I'm also looking really closely at some vote splitting that is likely to happen primarily in the 905. Conservatives are feeling pretty optimistic in places like Brampton, for example, where we have a couple seats, not all of them, but a competitive Liberal and NDP race could actually result in Conservatives coming up the middle in a number of those ridings, and those would be ridings that Conservatives haven't held in some time, in some cases ever. So I think we could see a fair bit of that play out unless there's a shift between now and Election Day.
Okay, when we come back right after the news, the Conservative Party leadership race, Polyev and crypto, and Kenny's last stand. This is your political fix. Rob Snow Show on City News.
It's so important, and I know I do come on and I talk about this a lot, but every 60 seconds somebody in Canada needs blood, and so it's important to keep reinstilling the message of donating and continuing to get new blood donors to come into our system to support. We have 1 in 2 Canadians who are in need of blood at any given time, but only 1 in 81 people actually donate. So we need to improve those statistics.
Yeah, and helping to improve those statistics, you guys are always coming up with new campaigns, and you've got a new campaign now. Tell me about the campaign.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I'm happy to. It's kind of about Canadians. We sacrifice everything for people we know and for people we don't. Canadians show up for other Canadians, and we do this out of the goodness of our heart. And right now, especially right now, through the pandemic and, the winter months and the snowstorms, we've had a lot of canceled appointments. We've had, a decline in the number of people who are able to show up for their appointments. And right now, what we really need is for everybody who's eligible to hear the call to show up for patients. So patients in Canada need blood. We want you to show up. We want you to say we're here for you. And with currently only 4% of Canadians who donate blood, we want more people to show up and improve those numbers and really make sure that the hospital patients are comfortable and that they know that blood will always be there for them when and where they need it.
Yeah, and Jan, you mentioned the pandemic, right? And that probably, as you said, had it's one of the biggest reasons why people perhaps have stopped. But you do have health and safety protocols, and we want to encourage people and let them know that those health and safety protocols remain in place. Let's talk a little bit about those.
Absolutely. Well, first of all, our workforce, our volunteers, everybody who works within the blood donor clinic is fully vaccinated. And we have many wellness procedures throughout step by step. If you donated through the pandemic, you'll notice the distancing, you'll notice the wellness stations, the health checks at the front end, some more eligibility criteria, as you can imagine. But all of it is just to make sure that the experience itself is safe and reliable. And now we need people to come in and go through that process with us so that the end outcome, again, is that lovely unit of blood going to a hospital somewhere to help a patient.
The Rob Snow Show returns
on Rogers TV and City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Back with part 2 of your political fix. Carl Belanger, Kate Harrison with us this morning. My old buddy Brian Lilly writes in the Sun papers this morning about the Conservative Party leadership. I want whoever wins the Conservative Party leadership to be able to take on the Trudeau Liberals and win. But the way this current leadership race is going, we might be lucky to still have a Conservative Party of Canada come September. What do you think of that comment? Kate, are we watching the disintegration of a united Conservative Party of Canada?
That's a little pessimistic from Brian, I think.
Okay.
I've heard that argument every single leadership election. Oh, now's the time. Now's the time we see the splintering of the party. It wasn't Andrew Scheer and Maxime Bernier. It was Aaron O'Toole and Peter MacKay. And this seems like it will always be a factor, a facet, and a narrative that comes through in the leadership races. I'm not getting that sense at all. And in fact, the fact of the matter is, based on the polling that's been done of party members, it actually looks like we might be heading right now towards a pretty clear winner, and perhaps even a first ballot victory for Pierre Poilievre. There's a lot of time between now and September for things to change, but look at the numbers that he's pulling out at rallies. He still has to convert those folks to actual membership numbers, of course, but I'm not getting the sense that there's a lack of unity, perhaps a bit of an absence of focus in the House right now, because you've got 4 folks on stage out of the 5 or 6, that are members of Parliament that just aren't around. But I'm not picking up the sense here that we're at a critical turning point for the movement.
Yeah. Okay. I think they miss Poilievre in the House too. He's good in the House. But,
big time.
What do you think? A bitter divorce for a United Conservative Party?
Well, we have to be cautious about these kind of predictions, but it does happen. And Kate mentioned the Scheer-Bernier contest. He left. He created his own party, and it's a pain in the side of the Conservatives right now, grappling 4, 5, 6% here and there. So it does happen. But most often the party rally behind the leader. We can think of Joe Clark, who was turfed by Mulroney. He was Prime Minister himself, and he ended up being turfed by Mulroney, and then became one of the greatest foreign affairs minister that this country ever had. Paul Martin, Jean Chrétien had a feud that lasted for decades, but he was a loyal finance minister until he wasn't. But he was, and they had 4 governments in a row. Right. So the question is now, can anyone imagine Prime Minister Poilievre appointing Jean Charest as Environment Minister? I don't see it. Frankly, I don't see it. But it doesn't mean that Jean Charest will leave and create...
Patrick Brown is Immigration Minister.
Well, yeah, sure. And so this is the thing. I don't think it will splinter into a new party, but I can't see Jean Charest staying. And frankly, talking to people in Charest's team, I don't know what kind of role Poilievre would have with the Charest government. So this is where there will be lasting effects on from this campaign, just because of the tone of some of the attacks.
Pierre Poilievre has been a crypto enthusiast. The crypto market has crashed. What does this do to Pierre Poilievre's credibility as a finance critic and perhaps a future prime minister? Kate?
Yeah, I think that the bigger knock on credibility has a bit more to do with Poilievre's attacking of the Bank of Canada and the governor of the Bank of Canada than necessarily the crypto play. I think that remains a vulnerability for their team, perhaps the biggest vulnerability that Poilievre has. There's a lot of Conservatives that are pretty skeptical about crypto, and the last few weeks has perhaps validated some of those concerns. Mm-hmm. And I think it's one thing to talk about kind of regulating that market or, being open to kind of new entrants, et cetera. And another thing to say that it's a good tool to hedge against inflation when the market's crashed, 40%. So I think that is
inflation's going one way and Bitcoin's going the other, right? So it's not a good look.
That was an effective punch from Leslyn Lewis in the last debate. She said, if people followed your investment advice, Pierre, they'd be broke. And I think Patrick Brown jumped on that too. And that was one of the only times so far that I've seen Poilievre truly on his heels.
Okay. Carl, what do you think, Carl?
Well,
on the crypto stuff.
Right now it doesn't look so good for Poilievre. I mean, ever since he told people to buy Bitcoins, it dropped 40%. And I'm not even talking about the other crypto, which have gone from
zero. They've gone to zero. Yeah.
Zero.
Right.
And people have lost everything. And some of these stable coins will never come back. So I think it's not serious. I mean, Kate is right that the bigger issue is how he's trying to go after the Bank of Canada. But I think what's capturing the imagination is the Bitcoin, just because it's more sexy in a way, right? So I don't know how he gets out of that. It's going to haunt him forever. There will be ads in the next campaign if he becomes leader about him promising Bitcoins, and we'll see where the Bitcoin is then. But it will haunt him forever. I think it's the big anchor around his neck right now.
Okay. What do you make of his investment in Bitcoin? Is that unethical that he's touting the benefits of Bitcoin while holding investments in Bitcoin?
No.
By way of nothing to see there?
In my view, that's
been cleared
totally
by the
silly.
ethics commissioner. Is that
Sure, cleared by the ethics commissioner, but I'm sure if you were to ask pretty much any member of parliament if they have any kind of a banknote, for example, in one of the 5 major banks, you probably have at least half saying that they do, or any kind of investments in telcos or energy, et cetera. So this idea that would be an ethical conundrum and a conflict of interest just by holding a declared investment in that space, I'd be a lot more skeptical over, unregistered meetings with Bitcoin lobbyists, for example, if that were to be an issue as opposed to the investment.
All right, interesting. What do you think there, Carl?
Well, he's not going to fight against Bitcoin if he owns Bitcoin. I mean, that's simple as that. So is he making the best policy from a federal government perspective about the Bitcoin? Or is he making, a decision based on the fact that he owns that? I mean, and it goes, Kate is right, it goes for all kinds of other investments. They all have investments. But of course, you're not going to fight against your own investments ever. So is that a conflict of interest? Is that ethical? I don't know. But can we ask our 338 members of parliament to put every single one of their investment into a blind trust once they're elected? That seems a little too much to me.
Okay. All right. What way do you think this Jason Kenney vote is going to go today, Kate?
I think it's going to be tight. And I think that's what's going to be that'll be the toughest outcome for Kenney for sure. Is this? I think that he'll probably get the 50%. Does he clear 60 in order to have a little bit of breathing room? That's when you start getting pretty sticky. He said he'd stay on kind of as long as he met that threshold, but I don't think that Jason Kenney's problems go away if he's at 54, 55, 56. I think it has to be really definitive. Otherwise, he's going to be in for a tough road the next number of months.
How seriously should we take this? It's me or the crazies. How seriously do you take that as a conservative, Kate?
Yeah, I'm not sure. That seems like a very defensive posture from somebody that has been on the ropes for some time. Kenney did have a little bit of wind in the sails over the last number of months. Perhaps that's the improving COVID situation, things, looking up for Alberta's economy. Sure. He's benefited from that, but those are the kind of arguments that you bring out when you're backed up against the wall, as opposed to necessarily being overly confident in your own position.
Does Kenney survive, Carl? The day?
Well, the day perhaps. Will he stay on as premier after the next election? I don't see it, frankly. Speaking of party blowing up like this, the UCP is on the verge of that. And we've seen it in the past, not that long ago, when there was another party of the right, and that led to the NDP taking power for the first time in 60 years or something like that. Yeah. So could happen again. Not least very popular. Kenney is not. Even within his own party, that's obvious. He can hang on. Maybe he will hang on, but I don't think he will, in the long run, remain premier.
Okay. He says 50 plus 1 is good enough for me. What did Mulcair get, Carl?
Not 50 plus 1.
What was it? Do you remember what he got?
I think he ended up with 48.
Oh, 48. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So there was not we cannot even play that card.
No.
John Tory's in 2008. I think he was around 66, and he went to a back room for an hour and a half while everybody waited to wait and see what he decided, and he opted to stick around. But it took that long to deliberate at 66. So it gives you a sense of kind of what members' expectations are likely to be if he just clears the 50%.
Cool. Okay. Lots of fun this morning. Thanks a lot. Speak soon.
Pleasure.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Rob.
Yeah,
Thanks,
Carl
Rob.
Belanger from Traxion, Kate Harrison, Vice Chair at SUMA. Back after the news, talking more politics, conservative politics. Prime Minister Poilievre. What do you think of that? 750-1310 after the news. City News.
The Calgary Stampede is a world-renowned festival celebrating wrangling, bull riding, and everything cowboy. But did you know that many people credit its origins to a Black Canadian? Take a minute to meet John Ware. The word cowboy has racist roots. Before the American Civil War, white ranchers were called cowhands, but the enslaved black men and women working alongside them were actually referred to as cowboys to infantilize and disrespect black ranchers. The legend of cowboy John Ware is full of impressive feats and awe-inspiring skill, including the ability to train even the wildest broncos and easily hold a horse on its back. But the real story of John Ware is one that starts from more humble beginnings. Ware was born into slavery in the United States, gaining his freedom towards the end of the American Civil War in 1865. Ware's skills with cattle ranching developed as he traveled throughout the United States, eventually settling in a town southwest of present-day Calgary, Alberta, which made him one of the first black pioneers in the prairies. Over time, news of Ware and his amazing cowboy skills began to spread, and people came from across North America to witness his horsemanship and skills as a rancher. Eventually, Ware went on to own many of his own ranches. In 1892, he became the first man in Western Canada to earn the title of steer wrestler, and Ware's feats in local contests set the stage for the Calgary Stampede Rodeo we know today. In September of 1905, Ware was killed in a freak accident with his horse, and more than 10,000 mourners from across the region attended his funeral, making it one of the largest in Alberta history. Though his true story is difficult to separate from the legends around him, Ware's status as a respected forefather of cowboy skill continues to be celebrated today. Ware has dedicated monuments across Alberta, including several sites near his first ranch, a Calgary school in his namesake, and a building at the Southern Alberta Institute of Technology.
Number one for local news in Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News, now on 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
It's Wednesday, May 18th. Good morning. I'm Andrew Boyle. Right now in Ottawa, 9 degrees. In Smiths Falls, 10. Here's what's making news in Ottawa and the Valley. A hard figure today on what you've been feeling and seeing. The price of everything has driven up the inflation rate. The rate across the country for April, another 30-year high at 6.8%, led by skyrocketing gas, food, and housing costs. More from our senior business editor, Mike Eppel.
The biggest factor in the April inflation data was the cost of groceries going up at the fastest pace since the late 1980s. Grocery costs up by over 9% on a year-over-year comparable. Overall food costs up by 8.8%. Restaurant bills up by 6.5%. Fresh fruit up 10%. All of this lifting the headline inflation rate to that level not seen since January of 1991, 6.8%, which was the fifth monthly increase. The Russian invasion of Ukraine in late February has put upward price pressures on pretty much everything, specifically food products that use wheat. Statistics Canada says the poor weather in growing regions has also impacted the price for food. Gasoline prices up by 36% year over year. Home replacement costs up by more than 7%, which is also the highest since the mid-1980s. At the City News Business Center, I'm Mike Eppel.
City News time at 10:02. Now your forecast with meteorologist Jill Taylor.
Plenty of sunshine for most areas today and a bit warmer too. The high 19 degrees. Showers possible late tonight, a low near 7, and tomorrow some showers at times. The high again about 19 degrees. That's the high today, 19.
And right now, 9 degrees in Ottawa, 10 degrees in Smiths Falls. Transit system in Ottawa almost 18 million short this year, mainly due to COVID measures and, to a lesser extent, the downtown occupation this past February. The general manager of OC Transpo, Renee Emilcar, says it is hoped the federal government will reimburse the city for added expenses. That was asked to open up the Transit Commission meeting this morning by Councillor Riley Brockington. The OC Transpo also has a goal of 300 more hires this year, including the 80 already approved by City Council in the current budget. As for mask wearing on transit, that rule will remain in effect at least until June 11th. An update expected from Ottawa Public Health before that date. The LRT for March was operating at 99% efficiency. NDP leader Andrea Horwath will be in our area discussing the pharmacare plan with campaign stops in places like Smiths Falls, Ottawa, and Kingston. Progressive Conservative leader Doug Ford is in Hamilton today. Liberal leader Stephen Del Duca discussing affordability with an announcement in Toronto. Then he will be in Burlington and London. Green Party leader Mike Schreiner will have campaign stops in Parry Sound, Muskoka. That's a riding he believes his party has a shot to win. City News Time 10:04. Prince Charles and Camilla, Duchess of Cornwall, taking in a service at the Ottawa Ukrainian Orthodox Cathedral today. They're also scheduled to meet with the displaced Ukrainian woman and her 2 children. The second day of the royal tour includes a stop at the National War Memorial. That is scheduled for 10:50 this morning, as well as other events. And the U.S. Soccer Federation has agreed to a landmark collective bargaining agreement with its men's and women's teams. The deal equalizes compensation for the first time. This will run through the year 2028. The 2 agreements equalize prize money, benefits, and other revenue between the 2 teams. The Soccer Federation, the first national governing body in the United States to promise both sexes matching money. I'm Andrew Boyle for News Anytime. Follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
Talk back.
Hello. On the Rob Snow Show.
The phone lines are open at 613-750-1310.
Now, the Rob Snow Show continues.
Yes, it does, because everything continues until it doesn't. For this talkback hour, let's talk about conservative politics this morning. Some red meat here. You still afford red meat? The race to be the next leader of the Conservative Party, and maybe someday, who knows, maybe it could happen, the next Prime Minister of Canada. The person in this race who says all the time that he's running to be Prime Minister is Pierre Poilievre. So here's what I was thinking we would do this morning to kind of get the conversation going this morning. At 750-1310, 750-1310, 613-750-1310. I want you to finish this sentence for me. Okay? Finish the sentence. The idea of Prime Minister Pierre Poilievre is... The idea of Prime Minister Pierre Poilievre is... The idea of Prime Minister Pierre Poilievre is... terrific or terrifying? Awesome or loathsome? Resplendent or repulsive? Okay. The idea of Prime Minister Pierre Poilievre is... Just finish the sentence and look, we'll see where the conversation takes us throughout the hour. Everyone, I mean everyone, seems to have an opinion these days on Pierre Poilievre, and I want to know yours this morning. Again, 750-1310. 750-1310. 613-750-1310. I mean, he's all over the news again. And for so many in the news media, including me, he's all they want to talk about. Okay? They're all talking about him, doing news reports about him, writing columns about him. And I have to tell you, not too many opinions in the editorial sections of the news media. They're not very flattering, not even from certain columnists you might think, would usually give Pierre Poilievre a sympathetic review. There's a big news story this morning on the Poilievre front that he owns investments in Bitcoin. For example, from CTV News, quote, Conservative Party Leadership Canada, Pierre Poilievre has a personal financial interest in cryptocurrencies that he has promoted during his campaign as a hedge against inflation. The Ottawa area MP's assets include units of Purpose Bitcoin, a Canadian-based exchange-traded fund that holds cryptocurrencies. According to his May 4th disclosure to the Federal Ethics Commissioner, Poilievre's campaign denied encouraging investment in crypto puts him in a conflict of interest. It goes on, quote, campaign provided an email from the Office of the Ethics Commissioner from November that said the interest in Bitcoin does not prevent you from commenting on cryptocurrencies in general, participating in debates and votes on public policies related to the regulation of cryptocurrencies. Commissioner's office also said Poilievre was free to host conversations with other MPs on the subject matter, as any policies or regulations would apply to you as one of a broad class. Poilievre has proposed barring the Bank of Canada from developing its own digital currency and said Canadians should be free to use alternative currencies for payments, end quote. So that's from CTV News. That's from CTV News. One of many, many things that you will see in the news media about Pierre Poilievre this week, so I want you to finish this sentence. The idea of Prime Minister Pierre Poilievre is... How would you finish that sentence? Marie in Orleans. Good morning. You're on City News. Marie?
Good morning, Rob. How are you?
Hi, Marie. I want you to finish the sentence. The idea of Prime Minister Pierre Poilievre is...
Amazing.
Amazing.
Refreshing.
Okay. Amazing. Okay.
Amazing, refreshing, calming.
Wow. Okay.
Reinstall. Honestly, he's right.
He's
the
right.
stuff he's talking about. Well, I mean, the crypto stuff.
Yeah.
Right. I'm sorry, but value is only given value if we agree, right? This is the whole thing with the cryptocurrency. You agree that $20 is worth $20. So if I give you $20. You accept that as being worth $20.
I suppose.
It's kind of the same concept with crypto, but that's a whole other conversation. But Pierre is speaking what most people are thinking, except for maybe the 22% that are left, that are still leaning left. He's speaking it. People aren't saying it out loud, but he's saying what we're thinking.
He's saying what you're thinking. Okay. All right. You think he's authentic, that he's honest, that...
Yes.
Okay.
Well,
all right.
let's be honest here. Give me one that is authentic and honest, and then I'll put Pierre under the same. You know, like
Okay.
we can't expect him to be authentic and honest when our like we can't judge him.
Right.
When our current prime minister is so unauthentic and so dishonest, like what's happening right now.
All right.
know? So
You think it's amazing. I got you, Marie. I'm going to move along. The phone lines are ringing off the hook here this morning. Okay. All right. Interesting. Erica in Hammond, you're on City News. Erica's got her radio on. I hear myself in the back. I'll just wait for me to catch up with Erica. Let's just wait. And this is where she says, "Oh, hi, Rob." Ah. Hello, Erica.
Hi, good morning.
Welcome to the show, Erica. You got to turn your radio down.
Turning my radio down now.
All right, Erica.
Sorry.
Okay.
Turning my radio down.
All right.
Hi.
The idea of Prime Minister Pierre Poilievre is, how would you finish that sentence?
Scary.
Scary. Okay.
Yeah.
What's scary about it?
Well, I just find that they're going to come to loggerheads, Trudeau and
Poilievre. Okay.
And I think they'll come to, it'll be constant bashing at each other and no progress and no getting further ahead. The one that stood out for me when I watched the debate happening, thank you, hon, was, what was, his name was Chris?
Aitchison. Yeah.
Clean, crisp, honest, excellent sense of humor, dry wit, and that is going to shoot Trudeau down.
Okay.
And
all
so
right.
I think he's the winning candidate overall from that debate.
You're worried that the debates between Poilievre and Trudeau will just be so toxic and divisive that we'll lose sight of the important issues in the country.
Yeah. We're going,
Fair enough.
it's going to become picking, excuse my language, picking pepper out of fly poop, but
okay, all right.
down to the minutia.
Gotcha.
And not making any progress on the big picture that Canada is a vast nation with a lot of issues going on besides what's happening in Parliament. We need to look outside of that building and look at the country as a whole.
Okay. Thank you.
And I
Thank
think
you, Erica.
I
sorry,
think
Erica.
that candidate does that.
Gotcha, Erica. Thank you.
Okay, bye.
Thank you. Thank you. My old friend Bernie, the socialist in Mississauga. Good morning, Bernie.
Good morning. Good morning. I think
the idea of Prime Minister Poilievre is what to you, Bernie?
I think he's too hard of a personality to present before the people.
Too hard.
I think what he should do is take a playbook from Doug Ford, because people like people.
Right. Okay.
And, people like to be bullshitted.
Okay, don't use that language, Bernie. But do you like Doug Ford or no?
Well,
you see, all the trade unions are lining up behind him now.
Manipulate people. He's got that character about him. He goes out or something.
All right, Bernie, your phone is not very good this morning. Okay, buy a phone on the free market. Okay. Not one of those commie phones, Bernie. All right, Kim in Barhaven. Kim.
Hi, Rob.
The idea of Prime Minister Pierre Poilievre is... Finish the sentence.
Sorry, I could switch from my car phone to my cell phone. Can you hear me?
I hear you just fine.
Okay. Yeah, the idea of Pierre Poilievre as Prime Minister is not good.
Not good.
And I used to hold a lot of respect for him years ago. I would say 10, 15 years ago.
Okay.
He helped my mother-in-law out of a lot of things when she, asked for his help. But you know what did me in was that YouTube video.
What YouTube video?
Well, he put one out just during the Freedom Convoy.
Oh, sure.
And the truckers and him being down there, and I was against all of that. And he just put me really off.
Turned you off?
Yeah.
You mean where he's on the overpass and he's talking about freedom and he's wearing his parka and his hat and everything? And okay.
Not for me, Rob.
Not for you. Not for you.
All right, have a good day.
All right, Kim. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. 750-1310. 750-1310. We're off to a rip-roaring start on the Talkback Hour today. Finish the sentence. The idea of Prime Minister Pierre Poilievre is... This is the Rob Snow Show on City News.
Crowd here tonight at the Ottawa Civic Center, the OHL Championship Game 6. Two of the best face-off men in the OHL meeting right here at the Civic Center. Zenon Konopka against Stephen Weiss. And we're underway as John Zion grabs it, gets across the blue line. Quick shot right on. Zepp, no problem. High off the glass, back to center for Ottawa. Sellers, pass up to Bauman. Gets bumped off the puck. Wisniewski, puck up! Scores! The Ottawa 67s take a 1-0 lead.
Ryan Kilray was talking earlier today that sometimes in big games it's a lucky bounce that can decide things. Was he ever right on this play so far? Watch Sozanov going the opposite way. Just take a whack at it. Look at Talbot strip the puck from Oosterdahl. There it is in front of the net, and Sozanov gets a piece of it, and it goes in behind Rob Zepp. Bowman carries the puck up the ice, then Talbot strips it, and there's Sozanov, who outwins the assignment with the back-checking Damian Surma, and Ottawa's got the lead.
John Zion for Ottawa. Up to Sozanov. His pass to Talbot. One man to beat. Talbot scores! Far side, low on Rob Zepp. Power play goal for the Ottawa 67s.
He is on fire tonight for the 67s. Look at the jump in his legs. Right here, he explodes with the puck. Head up, shot, a goal scorer's goal from the captain, Mighty Joe. And the 67s now have a stranglehold on the Plymouth Whalers. 2-0. Nothing Zepp could do on that play. He just placed it perfectly.
It had nowhere else to go.
Just a beautiful goal scorer's goal from the captain.
Tied up by two Whalers. Savage came in there, and here comes Plymouth. 3-on-2. Bernarski with Jarrett and Stewart. Centered in front. Scores! Preston left alone in front. And Plymouth climbs to within 1. Picked off by Jarrett, centered in front. Ottawa can't get a rope. Bounce off the leg. Whalers. Clear the zone. The Ottawa 67s win the 2001 OHL Championship.
There's Brian Kilray, Zenon Konopka handing him the cup.
It's time to talk back
on the Rob Snow Show.
Have your say and call now.
613-750-1310.
Finish the sentence. The idea of Prime Minister Pierre Poilievre is what to you? Ron in Killaloo. Good morning, Ron.
Yes, good morning, Rob.
Yeah, hi, Ron.
I'll finish the sentence for you. I think it's terrific.
Terrific. Okay.
Terrific.
Why is that, sir?
Well, I'll give you an example. Today there was an article by Carson Gemma in the National Post, and she was writing about Gary Mason's article in the Globe and Mail.
Yes.
Which was very uncomplimentary towards Pierre Poilievre.
It was not kind, no.
I complimented on that, and I was censored, or my tweet or my response was deemed unacceptable. I used 3 words in my comment.
Okay.
I didn't use any foul language. Right. I wasn't, Anyways, those 3 words were used by Prime Minister Trudeau in describing the fringe group in the convoy. I thought, the Prime Minister can use those words. I can't. Why is that? Pierre Poilievre speaks exactly to me. I'm 72 years old.
Okay.
I feel disenfranchised.
Okay.
And I think that he speaks for people like me.
Fair enough, sir. Thank you, Ron.
Oh, you're welcome.
Thank you, sir. Okay, let's go. Line 4 is Garth in Nepean, a wonderful place to be in. Garth.
Good morning.
Hi there. The idea of Prime Minister Pierre Poilievre is...
Exciting.
Exciting.
Yes, Prime Minister Pierre, the pulverizer. If he can keep the momentum going till September and beat Charest and the rest of the contenders.
Yes.
Then Singh and Trudeau, he'll be the leader of the opposition for at least the next 2 years or so.
Yes.
And so Trudeau and Mr. Singh are going to have a tough row to hoe, especially in the next election. I think he definitely has a chance against Trudeau.
Well, I mean, if you think about the way he kind of ragdolled Charest in that debate.
That's why I say...
What is he going to do to Trudeau for 2 years?
He's Pierre the pulverizer.
Pierre the pulverizer, yeah.
Yeah,
okay.
and I hope that he really holds their feet to the fire for the next couple of years if he makes it in September. Good luck to him.
All right. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. It's interesting. 6 calls in so far. It's pretty much split 50-50 on, whether the idea of Prime Minister Poilievre is a good thing or a bad thing. Just as many people have called in so far to say they're not too crazy about the idea. Irving, Orleans. Good morning, Irving.
Hi.
The idea of Prime Minister Pierre Poilievre is what to you, Irving? Okay.
It depends on who he picks for his cabinet, his shadow cabinet.
Okay.
Because he can't run everything.
Right.
It's impossible.
Okay.
So he needs a strong shadow cabinet if he's going to be prime minister.
Okay. Has to be a team effort, you think?
Right.
Right. Okay.
And I think he can build a team. There's enough momentum in the Conservative Party to have a good team. And they're smart. The dumb ones are already left.
Okay. Well, okay, Irving. We'll see. Thank you. Let's take this call here. Kevin in Gatineau. Kevin, good morning. You're on City News. Yeah, hi there. The idea of Prime Minister Pierre Poilievre is...
Despicable.
Okay.
For us both, really. If you don't toe the line, if you interview him or something, you'll be fake news in no time.
Yeah, maybe.
Well, if you see, it's the same sort of, sentiments at his rallies, and then you have people the couple callers ago, the older fella, it sounds like he's a victim of replacement theory and fake news, whether it's today it's the CBC, tomorrow it's Rob Snow, unless, of course, you are brown-nosed.
What about cheerleader or something, right?
Yeah, that's the sentiment is, you'll hear it, fake news, this constant freedom and giving your life back. I mean, this is the truckers stuff, these are dog whistles that are, that humans can hear.
Dog whistles that humans can hear. All right, Kevin, thank you. Thank you, sir. Yep, bye-bye. Would Pierre call me fake news, Poilievre? Probably. Maybe he would. He is a cryptocurrency enthusiast. He talks about it a lot. Some have accused him of promoting it, that he's like a huckster, if you will. And at the same time, we now know he holds an investment by way of an ETF in cryptocurrencies. So, I don't know, is there a conflict of interest there? Is it ethical? Ethics Commissioner doesn't seem to have a problem with it. That's how CTV News found out about this holding. It was publicly disclosed as required under the law. As the news report notes later, down copy, Pierre Poilievre is not the only member of parliament to have holdings in cryptocurrencies. At least 7 other MPs have investments in cryptocurrencies, and 5 of them are Liberals. But their name is not Pierre Poilievre, and they're not running to be Prime Minister. They're not trashing the Bank of Canada. They're not vowing to fire the Governor of Bank of Canada. They're not promising to defund the CBC and lambaste the so-called liberal mainstream media. So that's in the news today. But anyway, not to get too far away from my call to action to kind of act as a conversation starter, just, finish the sentence. The idea of Prime Minister Pierre Poilievre is what to you? Kevin in Ottawa. Kevin.
A breath of fresh air.
A breath of fresh air. All right. Okay. Interesting. Why do you say that, sir? Why is he he's been there for 18 years. He's hardly fresh.
Well, he's hardly fresh, but his whole ideas, and his persona.
Okay.
His persona and everything is no tiptoeing through the tulips like the rest of the politicians, or a lot of them do, and appease this, appease that, and everything else. It's just, he's got some hard lines, yeah. Get rid of the CBC. Probably down tune those guys a wee bit wouldn't be a bad thing. And whatever else. And as far as, I don't understand what the crypto thing is all about. What's that all about? The crypto.
What do you mean? What do you mean? What's it all about? What do you mean?
Why is it even news?
Well, okay. Well, he's the one talking about cryptocurrencies, right? He's the one talking. You free yourself from the Bank of Canada, free yourself from inflation, protect yourself from inflation. Yeah.
That's right. We hear that every day from the rest of the politicians. So.
Yeah, well, it's just, the crypto market has kind of crashed, right? Some of these coins have gone to zero.
Yeah, I don't follow it, to be very honest with you, so I don't know. But I just kind of, when the crypto thing came up, Rob, I just thought, what difference does it make whether the guy's got cryptocurrency or not? What kind of news is that?
Right. Okay. And he's not the only one. As the report does note, there are 7 other MPs that do, and 5 of them are Liberals, right? So,
whatever.
But their name's not Poilievre, though, right?
That's right. It's their business. They're not running for Prime Minister. I get it all.
Yeah.
All right. But that's my thought. I just a breath of fresh air. It's something that a guy that wants to fight, or he's got up for a
breath of fresh air. Okay. That's interesting. Thank you. I think I'm going to take one more before the news. It'll be line 4. Kentville. Norm, you're on City News. Norm, good morning.
Well, thank you very much.
The idea of Pierre Poilievre as Prime Minister is what to you, Norm?
Scary to the Liberals.
Scary to the Liberals. Okay. All right.
Yep.
Is that a good thing or a bad thing for you?
I think it's a good thing. And the reason I think that way is because, one, he's very, very good on policy, very technical on policy.
Yeah.
So Liberals and NDP are going to have to be very careful when they're crafting and promulgating their policies. 2, He's, as Kevin was pointing out, and the older gentleman from Eganville, I think, was
Killaloe. Yeah, Killaloe.
Killaloe, sorry. Pierre is a breath of fresh air. I mean, he's coming in with some new ideas, a very commonsensical, even though he's been there for 18 years, he's coming in with new ideas, and he's coming in with a very commonsensical approach that appeals to a lot of Canadians who have had to struggle through their life.
Yeah.
And we can recall the days when interest rates were 18, 19, 20%, and they can recall what it was like in the mid-90s when Chrétien and Martin had to lay off many people in the public sector because the economy was in such poor shape. I think that him making the announcements that he's making about CBC and the Bank of Canada are basically putting them on notice.
Putting them on notice,
They have to start doing things that are going to benefit Canadian people and not vested interests.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Norm. Okay, we'll be right back after the news. Second half of the Talk Back Hour on the Rob Snow Show on City News.
Being a crossing guard works great as part of my schedule as a high school student because I still have time to do my tests and assignments while earning a little bit of cash on the side.
Working as a crossing guard fits into my current lifestyle because it gives me a lot of time during the day to pursue hobbies that I'm very interested in.
A friend of mine introduced me to this job. I didn't know it was actually a paid job.
I always start my day. It's a very little, I guess, few months baby, and she always comes with her dad on her pram, and the smile she has, like, oh my God.
Well, I think the OSC is a very good employer. They show quite clearly that they care about you. They're very polite.
They really make you feel like you're part of a family.
It's fun. I really enjoy it.
Gets us out of the house, too.
Yeah.
#1 for local news in Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News, now on 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
It's Wednesday, May 18th. Good morning. I'm Andrew Boyle. Right now in Ottawa and in Smiths Falls, 11 degrees, and here's what's making news this hour. The country has seen another 30-year high inflation rate, approaching the level in 1991 at 6.8% last month. Food and gasoline, the biggest contributors to the increased hit to your bank account. Transit system in Ottawa is almost 18 million short this year, mainly due to COVID measures and to a lesser extent the downtown occupation this past February. The general manager, Renee Emilcar, says it's hoped the federal government will be reimbursing the city, but they don't have a final date for that cash to arrive. The request has been made to the other levels of government to make up that cash, not only from COVID-19 measures, but also the occupation in the downtown. After approval of 80 new operators for the service, the general manager also says OZ Transpo needs another 300 people altogether. That is by the time the Trillium line, that's Phase 2 LRT, opens. Crowds are gathering at the National War Memorial this hour. The Prince of Wales and his wife set to lay a wreath in about 20 minutes. The royal couple also visiting the Royal Canadian Geographical Society on Sussex. That is scheduled for 2:30 this afternoon for those involved in the Prince's Trust Canada. There's also going to be a reception tonight marking the Platinum Jubilee. City News Time, 10:33. I'm Andrew Boyle for News Anytime. Follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
Talk back.
Hello. On the Rob Snow Show. The phone lines are open at 613-750-1310.
Now, the Rob Snow Show continues.
Everyone has an opinion on Pierre Poilievre, who says he's running for Prime Minister. The idea of Prime Minister Pierre Poilievre is, finish that sentence, the idea of Prime Minister Pierre Poilievre is horrifying, awe-inspiring, depressing, rejuvenating. Give it some thought and give me a call at 750-1310. In addition to the story about Poilievre's crypto investments, there have been many columns recently about the frontrunner in this Conservative Party leadership race, and they've been mostly critical. I would say overwhelmingly critical to varying degrees. Recently in the National Post, which has traditionally been viewed as Canada's conservative newspaper, Kelly McParland wrote about Poilievre, and it was headlined, Pierre Poilievre is too big a risk to lead the Conservatives. Too big a risk. Quote, Poilievre's impulses are to destroy and then to experiment in replacements that might serve well in launching startups from the garage, but it's too dangerous to run a country on that basis, especially one so badly in need of sound, intelligent management. Conservatives have had a crush on Poilievre for some time, but they need to take a whole lot closer look at the alternatives in the months ahead. And I mean, Kelly McParland, if you've read him for any length of time in the Post, you know, he's not some kind of Laurentian elite liberal. So that one might sting more than the others. Gary Mason in the Globe and Mail, just like over the top, always attacking conservatives for all the problems in the country, even though we've had a liberal prime minister for the last 6.5 years. But he blames Poilievre for the atrocious behavior by protesters against the NDP leader, Jagmeet Singh, in Peterborough. That's Poilievre's fault, because those protesters, they're Poilievre types. They're Poilievre types. Quote, is the man so bankrupt of cogent, viable policies that this is what he has to resort to? Consequences be damned. One day there may be an incident like the one in Peterborough that has a much different ending, and there will be blood on many people's hands. End quote. But mostly, you know, Pierre Poilievre's hands. National Observer, far left wing, Max Fawcett. You can imagine the praise Max Fawcett gives Pierre Poilievre. He doesn't like Pierre Poilievre or anyone else who is, say, a little more right-wing of, say, Fidel Castro. He laments Poilievre's attack on the gatekeepers because, don't you understand, you silly fools, the gatekeepers are there to protect us from ourselves, our own worst impulses. We need the gatekeepers because, you know, we're too stupid to take care of ourselves, you silly boys and girls. Quote, to Poilievre, quote, fewer regulations and less government cannot help but improve freedom and increase prosperity, but the recent cryptocurrency crash and the proximity of his political fingerprints to it should give other Canadians pause, including and perhaps especially those with a vote in this year's Conservative Party leadership race. We've seen time and again the gatekeepers can be the ones protecting us from the dangers we can't or won't see. The gatekeepers. Where would we be without them? We'd all be wearing potato sacks and living in the ditch without the special wisdom of the gatekeepers, I guess, according to this fella. You know? Sorry, that's my worst instincts. 750-1310. 750-1310. Pierre Poilievre. The idea of Pierre Poilievre as Prime Minister is... Glenn in Nepean. Good morning, Glenn.
Good morning, Rob. How are you?
I'm good, Glenn.
It would be all-inspiring and terrific.
Terrific. Okay. All right. Why do you say that, sir?
Well, just look at what's been going on for the last 6.5 years.
Okay.
And
a nice change, you think,
I'm
from
all
Trudeau?
Yeah, big change, and I'm all in favor of the carbon tax being turned, which nobody really mentioned, but being reversed and taken right out of there because it doesn't do a damn thing. And second, what you just mentioned about gatekeepers, it's gotten to the point of ridiculous.
All right, Glenn. Thank you, Glenn.
You're very welcome.
Thank you, sir. Okay, let's go here on this line here. Jamie in Ottawa. Jamie.
I'm going to go with fiscally prudent and economically necessary.
Economically necessary. Okay, that's interesting. Why do you say that, sir?
Well, we already know what the alternative is since 2015. A lot of broken promises, and we may recall we were promised balanced budgets and then tiny deficits of $10 billion a year. And unfortunately, we ended up with a $1.3 trillion debt in less than 6 years, doubling from where it was. So, we know what the alternative is. It's progress. It's better.
It's progress. Okay. Interesting, Jamie. Thank you. Economically necessary, he says. Economically necessary. Conservatives coming in to clean up a liberal-made mess. Gordon in Bell's Corners. Good morning, Gordon.
Good morning, sir.
The idea of Prime Minister Pierre Poilievre is what to you?
What Canada needs.
What Canada needs. Okay, interesting. Why do you say that? Why do we need Pierre Poilievre?
Well, I lean more towards the fiscal approach for any conservative, but he's really speaking to all Canadians in language that Canadians can understand. He's actually a very intelligent man, and he's quite well read, but still can speak to Canadians.
Okay. You think he's got kind of a common touch, you think? He's got kind of that... Yeah.
I think the crowds that show up are an indication of that. Yeah. And the well-read and very intelligent, I would ask all people, it's your choice, on YouTube, but he did an hour-and-a-half interview with Dr. Jordan Peterson 2 days ago, and it's a fantastic interview. And actually, Peterson's asked all of the candidates if they wish to come on. Only 2 have come on so far.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Gordon. Okay. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Bye-bye. Okay. All right. Yeah. Well, David actually assembled a little bit. It's kind of like a greatest hits collection of Poilievre's recent musings. Roll tape.
I'm running for Prime Minister to make Canada the freest country on earth and put you back in control of your life.
We're going to buy this shawarma with this Bitcoin. You ready? We should unite for freedom. See a $5 million house here in Vancouver? Feast your eyes on the home of your dreams. Here it is. $4.8 million is the listing price in Ottawa for this baby. Are just beside themselves because I said that as Prime Minister, I would fire the governor of the Bank of Canada.
This is country, Mr. Charade. It's not a laughing matter. How much did you get from Huawei? Answer the question.
They put out a letter saying they didn't agree with all of my views. So, of course, they were gutless and watered down just like their beer. Thank you very much, everybody.
Oh, that's when he went after the brewery. Right? I forgot about that. Yeah, man, he's getting all the ink. He's sucking up a lot of airtime. I wonder if that old line is true. I don't care what you write about me as long as you spell my name right. Gosh, it's interesting. So many in the media want to talk about Poilievre. I'm guilty of it, right? The obsession. There's an obsession with it. I mean, you think about it. Poilievre does not run the country. The Prime Minister runs the country. His name is Justin Trudeau. He runs a de facto majority government now because of his secret deal with the NDP. And we're told because of that deal, Poilievre won't even have a chance to even make a pitch to voters to run the country for at least another 3 years. Like, we are safe from the perils of Poilievre until 2025, we're told. And yet, so many news reports about Justin Trudeau? No, Pierre Poilievre. So many columns about Justin Trudeau? No, Pierre Poilievre. Doesn't that give the current government a pass? A pass on things like gasoline prices at record highs, diesel prices, the fuel that runs the Canadian economy, diesel fuel? They're even higher. Fertilizer prices that have doubled. Farmers just starting to plant for the season. Food insecurity, the worst in years. Interest rates on the rise. Inflation on the run. Like, there was a news report not that long ago. The federal government, Justin Trudeau's government, hired 20,000 public servants last year. In a year, they hired 20,000 government workers. I'd like to know where they are. They're not working at the passport office. I happened to be in the passport office at Hogsback in Prince of Wales last week. I've never seen a line like that. Around one corner, around the other corner, around the other, out the other side of the mall. You know, sometimes you see news reports, people sleeping out overnight for concert tickets or, you know, the latest iPhone, they want to buy a hot new video game. Now we have people basically camping out so they can get a passport. It's ridiculous. The situation at the airports is an abysmal failure. And we have the Trudeau people blaming it on Canadians. Oh, basically calling Canadians dummies who don't know how to travel. They forgot how to travel. Young people who have lost all hope of ever owning a home. People who just bought a home have probably bought at the top of a historic housing bubble. All of this is happening under the Prime Minister's watch. 6.8% inflation is happening under Prime Minister Trudeau. Yet all the political news media in the country, all they want to report on is, Pierre Poilievre holds a few $1,000s in an ETF of Bitcoin. What about what Mr. Trudeau is? We have a cost of living crisis in this country. People are going broke two ways, slow and fast. Rob in Orleans, you're on City News. Rob.
Yeah, how's it going, Rob?
It goes. Yep. The idea of Prime Minister Poilievre is what to you?
Amazing. Refreshing. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Why do you say that? Yeah.
Well, first of all, just to cover the Bitcoin piece, I mean, the IMF is working with governments globally to get a centralized digital currency, so that shuts it down right there. So, I mean, what he's saying is just what's happening globally.
Okay.
They want a currency, a digital currency. So if it's Bitcoin or not doesn't matter. But just to say, I saw the.
Well, China's not going to have a digital currency. China's not going to have a digital currency.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, we're all tapping our cards now, so it's over, you know. But just to say, in regards to just him, I feel like it sort of resembles a bit of American politics, but it's kind of refreshing with a Canadian twist. And I do believe Pierre will take a majority. It's kind of like the Hillary Trump. They underestimated him.
Okay.
And obviously Pierre intelligent. I saw the interview with Jordan Peterson. Hits on all the key points that everybody cares about and speaks our language, the common man, common woman, you know. And I can't help but relate to him. I mean, we've all been through some rough times the last 2 years, and everybody I talk to, at least that has common sense, you know, believes him. And anytime Trudeau talks, I can't help but just sort of, I don't want to say the word, but I just can't fathom how disconnected they are from just the real problems.
Okay. You think Pierre Poilievre is more in tune with what is really on Canadians' minds right now more than, say, Trudeau is, for example?
Affordability, housing. Future. Anybody that has young kids can see the problems coming. It's like a repeat of his father. It's amazing how someone can't learn from the past.
Okay.
And coming from the same household as the same person that destroyed Canada for 20 years. So they're repeating the same mistakes instead of learning from them. And if you don't have a conservative government in the next elections, it's the same result. So I hope we put a stop to it earlier and we don't end up with 12% interest rates on mortgages and that kind of thing. So it's just, I come from more of a financial background, so I can relate to how he speaks and what he's referring to.
Gotcha.
And it's just sound budgeting talk. It's just very sound.
Okay.
There's just nothing you can really critique about.
It's about fiscal policy for you. Fiscal policy. Fiscal policy.
Of course.
I gotta go, Rob. I gotta go. My lines are jammed today, and I'm talking too much myself. 1047 Rob Snow Show, City News.
Riding requires attention and focus. No distractions, no moment of unawareness, because one brief moment can cost a lifetime of other moments. Everyone deserves to arrive home.
The maritime provinces are home to some of the oldest settlements in Canadian history. But did you know that one of the first was actually started by black settlers? Take a minute to learn about the rise and untimely fall of Africville. Black people have lived in Nova Scotia since before the founding of Halifax in 1749, but it wasn't until after the American Revolution in the late 1700s and early 1800s that large groups of black settlers began to arrive in the province, many of whom were former slaves promised freedom and land in Nova Scotia. What they encountered when they arrived, however, was racist treatment by their white neighbors and government officials. This pushed many black people to build homes on the outskirts of town instead. But despite the area receiving little support from government officials and lacking necessities like functioning sewage systems, access to clean water, and proper garbage disposals, the tight-knit community persevered, and so Africville was born. For more than 150 years, the small community grew, expanding from just a few homes to a population of over 400 people. Everything changed, however, in 1964 when plans for a new bridge and the idea of urban renewal prompted the municipality to set its sights on Africville's land. Instead of investing in the community, officials approved a relocation program that promised free job training and employment assistance to help residents through relocation. But the reality wasn't so kind. Residents had their belongings moved in city dump trucks, and homes were demolished immediately after their owners left. Of the 400-plus people living in Africville, only 14 residents held clear legal titles to their land, so the rest were only given $500 with the promise of more social aid in the future. Not much else was actually done to support Africville and its residents until 2001, when a United Nations report called for reparations to be paid to the community. In 2010, Halifax Mayor Peter Kelly apologized for the atrocities against Africville as part of a $4.5 million compensation deal. In 2021, Councillor Lindell Smith put forward a 7-part motion to plan for the future of Africville alongside local organizations and the descendants of former residents. Today, there's a public park and museum where Africville once stood to teach visitors about the history of the land and its community. If you've never heard of Africville, you're not alone. The tragic story of this small black community in Nova Scotia is not as well known as it should be.
It's time to talk back
on the Rob Snow Show.
Have your say and call now.
613-750-1310.
Very interesting discussion. It's hardly unanimous. People who think, Poilievre is the next big thing in Canadian politics. What, 14 calls in, 10-4 right now. Look, I'm not here as a cheerleader, okay? I don't want to leave you with that impression. There are things I don't like about the way Pierre Poilievre is running his campaign, just as there are things that I don't like about the other candidates as well. I don't like that Pierre Poilievre is running all across the country telling Canadians he wants to make them the freest people on the earth, and then doesn't say anything about the illiberal government in Quebec. Like on legislation like Bill 21, Bill 96, that are clearly making Canadians a lot less free. And Poilievre has nothing to say about that. English-speaking Quebecers, religious Quebecers, immigrants to Quebec who want to become Canadian, do they have any less right to Pierre Poilievre's notion of freedom than anyone else? With Charest, I have grave concerns about his work for Huawei and what that says about him. And we don't have to litigate that all over again. All the issues there, national security, 5G, 2 Michaels, it just leaves... a bad taste in my mouth, and a carbon tax is like a non-starter for me. It's just a non-starter. Patrick Brown, look, I admire a comeback story as much as the next guy. I'm not comfortable with some of the ways he practices politics, making promises to every person he sells a membership to. Embassies here, consulates over there, all this stuff. It's unsavory. Roman, I don't even know how to say his last name. Babber?
It is Babber.
Babber?
That's how he said it at the debate.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice enough. A one-trick pony, though. And the mandates. Well, most of them are over anyway. Like, what else do you got? Scott Aitchison, I like him. I do. I like his style. I don't think he has much of a chance. I think he's trying to raise his profile. And I don't like the way he picks on our farmers and blames farmers in supply management for high food costs. Does he really think governments in other countries don't subsidize their farmers? Is he not paying attention when people like Peter Ruder say, hey, my diesel prices have doubled, my fertilizer prices have doubled? Yeah, milk prices are up 8% in the grocery store because of supply management. Leslyn Lewis, I'm not a social conservative. Trudeau Sr. said there's no place for the state in the bedrooms of the nation. Conservatives should feel comfortable with that phrase. And I don't think the country wants to slide backwards on things like equal marriage or reproductive rights. That's not where the vast majority of people in this country want to go. Not now. We have other issues to deal with. So there's no perfect candidate unless, Stephen Harper makes a comeback or something. But the only one who says he's running for prime minister is Pierre Poilievre. So, again, final few minutes here. The idea of Prime Minister Pierre Poilievre is what to you, Nicola?
Hi,
Nicola.
exciting.
Exciting. Okay, you find it exciting. Why is that?
Is it not Poilievre? Because it's P-O-I-L. I wonder why everybody says Poilievre.
Poilievre. Yeah. Okay. Whatever. He, Poilievre. He says Poilievre.
So
okay.
It would be more exciting if Trudeau stayed around, but I think he's afraid of Pierre. So we're going to get Christina Freeland.
You think it'll be Chrystia Freeland? Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, then I think the job gets a lot more difficult for Pierre Poilievre to become prime minister because.
Yeah, possibly, but I don't know. I think he could help unite the West and Quebec. Actually, I think he was born in Calgary and went to the University of Calgary, and we'll see. Is it Quebecers are going to vote for francophone from outside Quebec?
Well, plus you see the Conservative Party in Quebec is on the rise.
Yeah.
Right?
Provincially, you mean?
Provincially, yeah. Provincially.
Yeah, a little bit.
A little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
the PQ's nowhere. Liberal Party's going nowhere.
Yeah.
He's doing everything he can to tiptoe around all the controversial issues, so he doesn't want to, make Legault mad, right? So, I don't know. We'll see what happens with it, I guess. I don't like what he's doing, any of them, what they're doing with Quebec. But anyway, don't get me started.
He doesn't seem to look down his nose at social conservatives, which Jean Charest seems to do. He sort of says they're part of the family, but it's sort of like a relative you only ask for Christmas, and then the rest of the year you ignore.
Okay. All right. Okay. All right. So exciting. You find him exciting. Okay. All right. Yeah. Good. All right. Let's go. Helen in Westboro. Helen.
Good morning.
Hi, Helen. The idea of Pierre Poilievre as prime minister is
encouraging and hopeful.
Encouraging and hopeful. Why?
Well, we need to change what we're doing here in this country.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I'm a bit of a loss for words.
Really?
For a change.
Not you. I don't believe that.
No, Poilievre is connected to the common person.
Okay.
And recognizes what we need to do. And he'd do something about oil and gas. He would do something about I'm sorry, I'm just...
cost of living?
Yes, the cost.
Inflation.
And seniors.
Seniors.
And
okay.
Seniors, yeah. And there'd be less corruption going on. Like Trudeau's or people are upset about Bitcoin. Well, he invested a little bit of his money in it. That's fine. I don't know anything about Bitcoin, and I wouldn't invest in it. But he to do so. Just look at it, and let's look at things. And then he'd do something about China, and I hope he'd do something about the manufacturing here in Canada. Bring back the necessary manufacturing that we need here, that we don't have to go to China for everything.
Gotcha. Okay.
The other thing is,
if
Pierre won, I'd raise a glass of wine. If it was Charest or
Brown?
Brown or Leslyn Freedom.
Leslyn Lewis?
There you go, yeah.
Yeah.
It would be a glass of Pepto-Bismol.
Oh, okay. All right. All right, Ellen. You always have one good line in there. Thank you.
Thank
you. Yeah, okay. That's it. That's all the time we have. Still ahead. Thank you for all your calls. That's really interesting. It's basically a good or bad question, right? What do you think of the idea of Poilievre as prime minister? 12-4. 12-4 today. That's interesting. Good or bad. But everyone has an opinion, and this makes for a great conversation. And that won't be the last news reporter column we see about Pierre Poilievre in the paper. Coming up on the show, yes, after the 11 o'clock news, Valley View, Bruce McIntyre, our friend with the Eganville Leader. Doug Ford is going to make an announcement in the next half hour or so as well. He's campaigning in Hamilton today. And so you want to be a firefighter? Now maybe your chance. The Deputy Chief Rural Operations with the Ottawa Fire Service, Todd Horrocks is going to join us. It's the Rural Recruiting Initiative for the Ottawa Fire Service. They need volunteer firefighters for rural areas. So we'll tell you all about the recruitment process. All ahead on the Rob Snow Show on City News.
is City News.
CIWW 1310 AM in Ottawa.
And CJET 1011 FM in Smiths Falls and the Valley. Number one for local news in Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News, now on 1011 FM and 1310 AM.
It's Wednesday, May 18th. Good morning. I'm Andrew Boyle. Right now in Ottawa and in Smiths Falls, 11 degrees. And here's what's making news in Ottawa and the Valley. The country's inflation rate for April at another 30-year high at 6.8%. That was led by the skyrocketing price for gasoline, food, and other essentials. Here's our senior business editor, Mike Eppel.
The biggest factor in the April inflation data was the cost of groceries going up at the fastest pace since the late 1980s. Grocery costs up by over 9% on a year-over-year comparable. Overall food costs up by 8.8%. Restaurant bills up by 6.5%. Fresh fruit up 10%. All of this lifting the headline inflation rate to that level not seen since January of 1991, 6.8%, which was the fifth monthly increase. The Russian invasion of Ukraine in late February has put upward price pressures on pretty much everything, specifically food products that use wheat. Statistics Canada says the poor weather in growing regions has also impacted the price for food. Gasoline prices up by 36% year over year. Home replacement costs up by more than 7%, which is also the highest since the mid-1980s. At the City News Business Center, I'm Mike Eppel.
City News time 11:02, and now your forecast with meteorologist Jill Taylor.
Plenty of sunshine for most areas today and a bit warmer too. The high 19 degrees. Showers possible late tonight, a low near 7, and tomorrow some showers at times. The high again about 19 degrees. That's the high today, 19.
And right now in both Ottawa and Smiths Falls, it's 11 degrees. City News time 11:02. The transit system in Ottawa just about 18 million short this year, mainly due to COVID measures. That led to less ridership, but to a lesser extent the downtown occupation this past February, which altered some transit routes. The general manager of OC Transpo, Renee Amilcar, says it's hoped the federal government will reimburse the city. The request from other levels details of government have not been finalized, but Amilcar says it's hoped sometime after the June provincial election some checks will arrive. OC Transpo has a goal of 300 more hires, including the 80 approved by City Council in the current budget. It does include new operators needed for LRT Phase 2 once that opens. As for the mask wearing on transit, that rule remains in effect until June 11th. An update is expected from Ottawa Public Health around that date. LRT for March was operating as well at 99% efficiency. NATO officials have failed to reach a consensus about whether to start membership talks with Finland and Sweden.
All NATO member countries must unanimously agree to any new member, but Turkey has said it opposes Sweden and Finland joining because of their alleged support for Kurdish militants. Finnish President Niinisto saying, quote, Turkey's statements have changed very quickly and hardened in recent days, but I am sure that we will resolve the situation with constructive talks, end quote. Niinisto will meet with President Biden in Washington on Thursday. Inez de la Cuetara, ABC News, at the Foreign Desk.
And Canada's foreign minister traveling to New York today. 2 days of meetings at the UN on the world food crisis sparked by Russia's invasion of Ukraine.
Melanie Joly will meet with UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres for talks and will take part in a United Nations Security Council open debate on the link between conflict and food security. Joly says Russia's actions in Ukraine are being felt across the world, especially among the most vulnerable countries. She says Canada, one of the world's biggest wheat exporters, is determined to work with its allies to help build future food security. Russia has blockaded Ukraine's ports, stopping exports of wheat and sunflower oil to countries that rely on them in the Middle East and Africa. Emily Joveski, The Canadian Press.
And I'm Andrew Boyle for News Anytime. Follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
Strong voice.
Strong opinions.
The Rob Snow Show returns on Rogers TV and City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Ontario Premier Doug Ford back on the hustings in Hamilton. Support for clean steel making in Hamilton. He's taking reporters' questions right now.
The cost of food, so people want more money in their pockets. It's hard enough to fill up your tank without costing a fortune as it stands now.
What you've talked about a lot in the last few days, the endorsements from trade unions. What about workers who don't have the protection of a union to advocate on their behalf for things like higher wages for those paid sick days?
Well, I'll tell you, we came out, we raised the minimum wage to $15.50, but I always believe too the market dictates when things are thriving in the economy. This is an employee's market right now. You know, you can get a job in any single sector you want. You can almost determine what you need to fill that job, and that's what I believe in, letting the market dictate. We're going to support the workers. They're going to get increased wages. They're going to get increased benefits. Again, our economy is thriving because we've created the climate and the conditions for companies to invest in Ontario. Prior to us coming in office, they were leaving in the droves, 300,000 of them. Now they're coming back in the droves. Again, I just need more people.
Good morning, Mr. Ford.
Morning.
If you're elected to form government again, would you commit to bringing in legislation similar to the Our London Family Act? And if not, what would you do to combat Islamophobia and other hate crimes in Ontario?
Well, we have a great strategy when it comes to anti-hate of any form. And by the way, we moved it to the Minister of Multiculturalism. We made a dedicated ministry for that. Over on top of the funding before, we've added another $30 million for education and security. And I'll tell you one thing, I think people understand this. I have zero tolerance for any hate of any type, for any religious background. We live in Ontario. Everyone should be getting along. And honestly, 99% of us, probably even higher, all get along, work together, live beside each other. That's what Ontario is all about. And I'm proud of our record there.
Just following up on the earlier question about Mr. Boma, what would it take for the PCs to disqualify a candidate, given that you're allowing candidates who participated in slave auctions and some who apparently endorse homophobic?
Well, again, that's a really unfair statement. Will Boma, he's a credible person, credible man, an incredible family. He just doesn't believe in that, and he didn't do it. End of story. I don't know who's making this stuff up. but he is just a quality person, and so is his family.
Hi, Mr. Ford. Just
Hi.
following up more on Will Bouma here. Regardless of whether he wrote the article or not, according to the Press Progress, he headed the Religious Youth and Education Committee at the time of the publication, and that magazine was calling for kids and young readers to reject the homosexual lifestyle. So regardless of whether he said he took part or not, how can you allow a candidate to still be a part of this organization that was promoting that?
Again, anyone who knows Will, anyone who knows his family, and maybe you should look into his family as well, because they're incredible people, knows that that's not his views. Simple. That's it. But again, what people care about in Brantford Brant, I'll tell you what they care about. They care about more jobs, lower taxes, and they want to make sure that they can pay their mortgage, pay their rent, and put food on the table. That's what people are concerned about, and that's what this election's about. Who do they trust getting the economy moving forward? And there's only one clear choice. That's the Ontario PCs.
And new reports suggest that home prices have soared 44% during the time that you've been premier. At the same time, you've largely mounted campaigns that revolve around working for the people. So how do you explain that surge, and what are you prepared to do to address this?
Well, that just goes to show you, for 15 years before we got into office, there was every roadblock, every barrier, anything you can think of, that they just weren't in favor of building, no matter if it was rentals or home starts. And our record speaks for itself. We had more home starts, over 100,000 home starts in 30 years. We had more rental starts. We have over 11,000, more than 30 years. We need to cut through the red tape. We need to cut through the regulations. We need to standardize the process until the cities and towns can start approving these projects. Some of these projects, trying to get through the bureaucracy and the red tape in these cities could take 2 or 3 years. As the prices of labor, as the prices of lumber and steel go up, I get an idea. We're going to give every single tool, which we have, to the municipalities to cut through the red tape and get these permits signed and get them out the door.
Ken Warner, Hamilton Community News. I was wondering, you've been talking about building stuff and that sort of thing. What about considering widening Highway 403 and widening the link because of traffic problems and, traffic chaos up there?
See, I like that idea, and thank you for that suggestion. I know we're working on Highway 5 and Highway 6 and widening those, but I got an idea. After June the 2nd, I'd love to look into that. That's what I like, building. We're a government of building highways and roads and bridges, but as the community grows, we're going to need more roads, more highways, widening them, and I'm all in favor of that, so I can't wait to chat with you after June the 2nd, and I think that's a fantastic idea.
Yes, so since there's a lot of things for the Conservative candidates to talk about during this election, will you tell these PC candidates, especially in Hamilton, to participate in debates? They're avoiding them.
Well, you know something? We have a clear message, and the clear message is very clear. We're the only party that's going to lower your taxes, put more money into your pockets, build schools and hospitals and bridges and roads and highways. The other three parties won't. They're anti-building. They'd protest everything you could possibly think of. I've seen it for the last 4 years. You have a very clear choice, folks. You can either vote for the three parties that will set up committees and studies and drag building out for years, or you can vote for the PCs. We're gonna get it done. We're gonna get housing built. We're gonna get the hospitals built. Over 50 projects, 50 hospitals around this province, every single region. $40 billion investment into hospitals. We're putting $14 billion into new school projects. As the Liberals, propped up by the NDP, closed 600 schools, we're building 100 new schools across the province. So we're going to get it done. They're going to talk about it, and people are going to have a clear choice on June the 2nd.
Hello, Mr. Ford. You were talking about green steel earlier at Dofasco and Algoma. We can see Stelco here in the background, another large steelmaker in the province. Have you had any green steel talks with them? Any discussions?
Yeah, a little bit. We're in talks with them. I'm encouraging them to go with the electric arc furnace. As you know, I can't dictate to private sector companies, but I can sure encourage them. And we'll continue on the talks with Stelco. But I'm telling you, I'm just so proud that we're saving 4,600 jobs in Hamilton here, and a couple thousand up in Algoma and Sault Ste. Marie. This is blazing a new trail. This is world class. Anywhere in the world, we're going to be the first out of the gate, or one of the first, I should say, out of the gate, producing clean green steel that's part of our supply chain, starting from the critical minerals up in the north that are going to manufacture the batteries in southwestern Ontario, and the green steel coming out of Dofasco right behind me. That green steel and clean steel, as I say, are going to be in the auto sector. The auto sector invested $14 billion into new electric vehicles, and I always say we're going to be the electric vehicle capital of North America. We're going to be producing the batteries right across the province. We have some really exciting announcements coming in with other companies that are investing into the supply chain. We're just excited. We're going on all cylinders, and I just want to thank all the people, all the trade unions, all the workers out there that are helping make this happen.
And just to follow up on my predecessor's question, we have a long tradition here of local riding debates during provincial elections, but we're hearing from some Tory candidates that the party has decided that they should not participate. Is that the case? And if so, why is that?
Well, I can't speak for every single candidate, because we do have candidates going out there and doing debates, but I'll tell you, our main message, it's a very clear message. They're going to have a choice on June the 2nd. Either vote for the parties that are saying no to everything, or vote for the PCs that are saying yes. Yes to lowering taxes, yes to building, yes to getting this economy moving on all cylinders, and that's what we're going to do.
Hi, Doug Ford. This is Bobby Herstola, CBC News. When you came into office, you made a point of scrapping renewable energy projects and EV rebates, and you've also made substantial changes to environmental review processes. Now you say you have a plan to address climate change and protect the environment. How can you justify your climate rhetoric now with your government's track record on the issue?
Well, I'd say it's fact. We took a different strategy. We're investing billions of dollars into people, into long-term jobs, and a perfect example is the 4,600 jobs at Dofasco. What would have happened if we didn't put $500 million, along with the federal government investment, into Dofasco? What would happen to their jobs? What would happen to the jobs up in Sault Ste. Marie if we didn't invest? As the jobs were chased out of this province in Windsor, we had the largest investment in green energy and green vehicles, electric vehicles in Windsor. $5 billion from LG and Stellantis, another $3.6 billion from Stellantis, and let's look at Oshawa too. They closed their plant because of the policies of the Liberals. Now they opened up Oshawa. They're going full steam ahead. And think of all the other auto manufacturers, no matter if it's Ingersoll or Woodstock or Oakville or Alliston or Cambridge, as I said before, Windsor, Brampton. So all these areas and all these towns and cities, they'd be a ghost town if the Liberals were still in power. Now they're feeling energy. They have certainty now. They have great paying jobs. And we're just really moving forward in a real rapid fashion with the auto sector. And I want to thank the auto sector for investing
$14 billion. Let's leave that. That's Doug Ford on the hustings today, doing a news conference, hosting some reporters there. On the waterfront in Hamilton with another backhoe in the background. He has a thing for that. Andrea Horvath, by the way, is on her way to Ottawa a little later. Stop in Smiths Falls and then a couple of stops tonight here in the Ottawa area. And she has an event at 1:30, and we'll carry that live for you this afternoon during the Sam LaPrade Show here on City News.
Baseball is back. Laddie's
My prayers to the sacred vow, for the ashes I will learn. Tobacco down, my prayers up for the years that I have yearned. This disconnect, I will object, my future won't be burned. I show respect, I will connect, my future won't be turned. When I do this, do it for the youth. Indigenous, give it back to my roots. Do it for my kin, do it for the truth. With diligence when I'm back in the booth. When I move in, move for me too. Walk all together, we move as a group. No matter the weather, no matter the route. Birds of a feather, we say full truth. Oh, Gemma, oh, Gemma. Just let your spirit guide our future generations. Oh, Gemma, oh, Gemma. Just let your spirit guide our future generations. Come on. Oh, Gemma, oh, Gemma. Just let your spirit guide our future generations. Oh, Gemma, oh, Gemma. Just let your spirit guide our future. Fresh on the scene, follow a dream. Living life clean if you know what I mean. Don't want you to follow, I want you to lead. The youth of tomorrow, they're gonna see. Never live faded, keep my hair braided. Leading a nation with no separation. Know we can make it, know we can break it. Feel the vibration through all generations. Ripple effect, trickle the steps. Bridging the gap with civil context. We'll cripple the next, with little respect. Fixing the past, cause you know we all blessed. Opening doors, use education. Carry the torch with participation. Opening boards, use conversation. The future is yours, it's time that you take it. Oh, Gemma, oh, Gemma. Just let your spirit guide our future generations. Oh, Gemma, oh, Gemma. Just let your spirit guide our future generations. Come on. Oh, Gemma, oh, Gemma. Just let your spirit guide our future generations. Oh, Gemma, oh, Gemma. Just let your spirit guide our future generations. Revitalize traditions, let the youth bring it back. Revitalize traditions, let the future bring it back. Revitalize traditions, let the youth bring it back. Revitalize traditions, let the future bring it back. Oh, Gemma. Just let your spirit guide our future generations. Oh, Gemma, oh, Gemma. Just let your spirit guide our future generations. Oh, Gemma, oh, Gemma.
Returns on Rogers TV and City News, 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
All right, let's check in with our friend Bruce McIntyre with the Eganville Leader. Joins us every Wednesday. It is Wednesday. Yes, it is Wednesday. Bruce?
It is the hump day.
Hey, thanks for hanging in there.
No problem.
Through Doug Ford's election news conference.
I learned a lot.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I learned that Andrew Howard's coming to Smith Falls, and I'm going to go the other way.
No, well, it's interesting that she's making a stop in Smith Falls, which is kind of like Randy Hillier territory, right? And he's not running again. It's Lanark, Frontenac, Kingston, that riding. The PC candidate is a guy named John Jordan, and it says that his father, Leo, was the PC MPP for Lanark Renfrew between 1990 and 1999.
Oh, really? Okay, that would have been...
Leo Jordan.
Yeah, that's correct. I was just thinking Mr. Jacobuski's father, Paul, was not in power at that time. So, yeah, that's right.
Okay, all right. So, I don't know. The NDP came second there, only 10,000 votes behind Randy Hillier. So, I don't know. Maybe they hope they can make up some ground. We'll see what happens. But anyway...
Yes.
Any election buzz in the Valley? What's the election buzz in the Valley?
Pretty quiet.
Pretty quiet, eh?
Well, the candidates are all actually out visiting constituents. They're doing that.
Yeah.
The only signs I've seen, Eganville, Barry's Bay is covered in blue, Jacobuski signs.
Yeah.
Down home boy. The Liberals and the NDP have signs very heavily concentrated in Deep River and Arnprior.
Oh, really?
And
okay.
Yeah. And I saw today I saw people putting up the first Ontario Party candidate sign went up. Big one, too.
Ontario Party, okay.
Yes,
yeah.
They are think of the Tories, they're Tory strong. Not Tory light, Tory strong. So they.
Well, that's Derek Sloan's party. Yeah.
Yeah. That's what it is. So we have one of those candidates, and that's really no big buzz, no big chatter on the streets. People are more concerned with the price of gas.
Well, yeah, price of gas.
Yeah, so it hasn't nothing really caught the fever here yet.
A friend of mine was in Pikwaganagon yesterday. It was $1.75 there yesterday. Anyway,
it went up.
It went up. Well, it's good. That's kind of the theme, isn't it, with the price of gas? Okay, what's the latest with the Eganville Leader and its printing press?
Printing woes. Well, Gerald has kind of taken this bull by the horn. He and the other newspapers in the valley, there's 3 others, they've looked at a couple of options, but the problem is they all want to do it at the same time, and that way it lowers the cost of delivery. However, the printing presses that they've consulted with can't do all 4 at the same time. It's just they don't have the capacity for that. So they're looking at perhaps the band might break up. They might go 2 and 2. Gerald is now looking at a spot in Quebec. Excellent quality. Gerald's going more so for quality. That's what he's looking for. So he's found the quality he's looking for, but the price of gas has gone up, and delivery from Montreal is a long way. So he'll figure something out. He'll get it done.
But is there a print edition of the newspaper this week?
There is, and there will be a print edition next week as well.
There will be, okay.
Yeah. And I've been
But beyond that, hard to say. Nothing firm.
Nothing solid, no. Nothing firm.
Okay.
And I told Gerald we've got to do something because the second week of June is our 102nd anniversary. So that would not be a good anniversary party. So the pressure's on them.
Right.
So 102 years, the Eganville Leader's been coming out of Eganville.
Okay. All right. The Eganville Leader is nevertheless spearheading fundraisers in the Ottawa Valley for refugees resettling in the area. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, Gerald got the idea last week when we featured a young lady who came from Ukraine, and she's now staying with a family in Barry's Bay. And he said, we've got to do more. I mean, he felt like all of us. We felt helpless. Like, what can we do? How can we help? So he started to do a fundraiser. And when Mr. Tracy does a fundraiser, he never misses the goal. So he put that out. He's looking for $100,000. It'll be one night in June 17th at the Eganville Arena. Music, dance, there'll be an auctioneer, Preston Cull, our local auctioneer, will be there to auction off silent items and real items. And the goal is to raise the money and to give it to the Ukrainian society, people helping to settle the people here in Renfrew County. And that money hopefully will be used just for the Renfrew County settlers. If required elsewhere for other refugees, and they'll do that as well. The committee for Ukraine individuals will decide how the money is used.
Okay.
So that way there's no second-hand or third hands involved.
Tell me a little bit about the story of Terry O'Gorman that I can read about in the Eganville Leader this week.
Oh, it's one of those nice stories. We're getting more and more farmers and people in the agribusiness moving into town because they're retiring. They're doing the family farm. For Terry, the O'Gormans go back to the 1850s. Very well-known family in the area. They're known for horses. His brother passed away last year, and they had a funeral march, and it was all horses carrying the hearse. Anyway, he's retiring. He knows the kids don't want to work the farm, so he's got to sell it. And for a 92, he says, I'm 92 years old, but I just can't do it anymore. Up to last year, I could do it. So it's just looking through his eyes of how the auction takes place and, deciding what you're going to keep and what's going to stay, and just the day of the auction through his eyes. He's not losing the farm, but he is losing it, but he still asks O'Gorman to farm that land.
But it's on his terms, though.
Yes, it's on his terms. Yeah, he's 92, yeah. And be over 150 years that farm's in the O'Gorman name. So it's one of those chapters that's going on. The kids don't want to do it. Can't blame them.
137 years.
Yeah, isn't that wild?
He says, I'm 92, I just can't do it anymore. I'm 92 and I can't do it anymore. You and me couldn't do what he does, Bruce. My gosh, right?
Yeah, it's just wild. Yeah. And Rob, there's an ad I saw you might like on page 6 in the bottom left corner. It comes out every year at this time. You won't find a better deal. I won't tell the name of the store, but it's a store in Pembroke. It's the only men's fashion store. The only place, Rob, you can buy a suit between North Bay and Ottawa. That's it. That's the only spot if you want to get a suit.
Seriously?
I'm serious. I'm not kidding you. That is the only place you can buy a men's suit between North Bay and Ottawa.
Well, you've got to tell me the name of the store. I mean,
I should.
Why?
Country style. They're in the men's clothing store. The selection is incredible. It's all modern.
Yeah.
And the reason I point that out to you because 2 years ago, my son Duncan, when he graduated for advertising the Promise Special, he was the model. Any guy?
Oh, really? Okay. There you go. Isn't that interesting? Okay.
Yeah.
The only place you can buy a suit between
North Bay and Ottawa.
Holy cow.
Yeah, over the last couple of years, we've had Fraser's men's clothes. They closed. They had outlets in Deep River, Pembroke, Renfrew. But no, that's the only suit. I mean, even Walmart doesn't sell suits. I mean, you can buy a suit at the Variety Value Village, the secondhand shops, but to quality suit, you go to Country Style in downtown Pembroke. That is it.
Okay. So some places here in Ottawa in the city are like $2.10 a liter today. What are you paying in Renfrew for gas? Did you happen to notice today? Or?
Yeah, I did. It's $2.08.
$2.08. Okay, about the same then. Yeah, about the same. Ridiculous.
I know. I went by mine on Monday. It was $1.70 at Pequawkin, so it went up 5 cents in one day.
Okay. All right. Hey, thanks for the update, Bruce.
No problem.
We'll talk soon, buddy. Yeah. Bye-bye. From the Eganville Leader, in print this week and next. Beyond that, fingers crossed for that award-winning Ottawa Valley Weekly. He's with us every week with Valley View. And you can also read him at ottawa.citynews.ca. Does some work for us as well here on City News. Back after the 11:30 news talking about volunteer firefighter opportunities. Big recruitment session underway right now. This is City News.
News in Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News, now on 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
It's Wednesday, May 18th. Good morning, I'm Danielle Bain. Right now in Ottawa and Smiths Falls, it's 12 degrees with mainly sunny skies. Here's what's making news this hour. The country's inflation rate for April is at another 30-year high at 6.8%, led by skyrocketing gas, food, and housing costs. Grocery costs are up over 9% year over year, while gas prices are up 36% year over year. This is the highest inflation rate since 1991. The transit system in Ottawa is almost $18 million short this year. That's mainly due to the COVID-19 pandemic, leading to less ridership and, to a lesser extent, the downtown occupation this past February. The general manager, Renee Amilcar, says they hope the federal government will reimburse the city for the added expenses. OC Transpo has a goal of 300 more hires, including the 80 approved by City Council in the current year's budget, which includes new operators for LRT Phase 2. The four main party leaders are spreading out across the province in search of votes as the election campaign moves past the halfway mark. NDP leader Andrea Horwath will be making stops in Nepean and Smiths Falls today to discuss her pharmacare plan. PC leader Doug Ford will be making an announcement in Hamilton. Liberal leader Stephen Del Duca will be making an announcement about affordability in Toronto. And Green Party leader Mike Schreiner will stop in Parry Sound, Muskoka, a riding he believes his party has a shot at winning. City News Time, 11:32. I'm Danielle Bain. For News Anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
Firm.
Fair.
Fun.
The Rob Snow Show returns
On Rogers TV and City News 101.1 FM.
and 1310 AM.
So you want to be a firefighter? There are opportunities with the Ottawa Fire Service. They're looking for great candidates for volunteer firefighters. And let's get into this with the Deputy Chief of Rural Operations with the Ottawa Fire Service, Todd Horrocks. Good morning.
Good morning, Rob. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm great. Great. Thanks for having me on, sir.
Yeah, no, it's a real pleasure to have you on today. What's it like to be a volunteer firefighter with the Ottawa Fire Service? What's involved with a position like that?
You know, when you say, like, what's it like, the first word that comes to my mind is rewarding.
Rewarding.
You know, it's a great opportunity to give back to the community, support the community that you live and work in. And again, when you're going out to help others, it's a rewarding, gratifying experience. And we see some tough calls, but we also see some great things that happen out in the community. Even residents helping residents, or volunteer firefighters or rural firefighters helping their communities, and when they need help the most.
Okay. What kind of people are you looking for?
Well, highly motivated, dedicated, and caring individuals, that just, again, that want to provide that support and assistance to their communities. And, it's not all just about fighting fires. We do a lot of fundraising, community events, public education events, and that's our first line of defense, is to get out and educate the public on fire safety, and just somebody that's interested in that. And, I guess the mindset is that you have to be mechanically inclined, you have to, be good with your hands. And I mean, that's fantastic, but, we have great certification, great trainers, a great training program that we can train people and get them prepared to deal with assisting or being a volunteer firefighter, rural firefighter within the city of Ottawa.
Okay. It's a very physical thing to be a firefighter. What kind of physical condition would someone have to be in?
It is physically demanding. As you can imagine, just the equipment you wear and the packs that you have. So what we ask of our new recruits is we put them through a physical agility test, which is basically a physical test that simulates, duties of a firefighter, like breaching a ceiling, swinging an axe, carrying equipment, dragging a mannequin a certain distance, and I guess simulates the work that's required or the physical work that's required to do the job.
Okay. It's a volunteer position, but it pays. Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay, tell us how that works.
We use the term like paid on call. So
paid on call. Okay.
Yeah, they're paid like an hourly rate.
Okay.
That's approved by council, and they're paid for their training. They're paid for calls when they go out. They're pretty much paid for everything that they do within the community. And obviously fundraising is one that they're not paid for. That's something that they choose to do on their own to help and support their community. And again, most of the people that get involved in this kind of initiative, like a volunteer, a rural firefighting, it's not about the money. It's about supporting the community. And if you get into a small community, odds are somebody or somebody knows you, and it's very a small knit family. And that's what it's about. It's not about monetary, but it's a paid on call position.
Paid on call. It says in the paper today it's $19 an hour. Is that about,
Yeah,
right?
so basically the way that our structure works is almost like the military with the hierarchy and rank and file, and you start as a recruit or probationary firefighter, and currently right now with our current COLA, cost of living, it's $18.93 an hour, and you go to class 4, class 3, class 2, and 1, and you work your way up to lieutenant and captain, so at the high end we're at $29.59 an hour.
Right, almost $30 an hour. Okay, all right, okay. So I'm just on the ottawa.ca, lots of information there about that. It says, before you begin, as part of the application package, include the following: copy of your resume, CV, cover letter, relevant certificates, diplomas, these sorts of things. So let's say I begin the process, you call me. What happens then?
So basically, so when you go through the process from the application, you submit your resume and your CV and your bit of a cover letter.
Yeah.
We call you in for an interview.
Okay.
And if you're successful in the interview, we schedule you in for CPAT. And if you're successful with CPAT...
What's that? What's CPAT?
So that's that's the physical agility.
That's the physical agility.
That's the physical test that and if you're successful in that, we sign you up for a recruit class. And we usually run a couple of recruit classes in the fall per year. In each one of our districts, we have 4 districts from east to west, and so in the recruit class, you're going to have your NFPA certification, which is our entry-level firefighting, level 1, level 2.
Okay.
You'll get a bit of hazmat training, and you do auto extrication, live fire, and because it's the corporation of the city of Ottawa, the municipality, there's like fuel handling, there's AODA, which is accessibility type training, and you do your WMIS training, and so there's a lot of theory and there's a lot of practical, and the practical hands-on fire related, that's the training that our recruits really love to get engaged, get involved in.
Yeah. I mean, they're called firefighters, but I've used this term in the past. They're like the emergency service, because you go to so many different kinds of calls. You don't just fight fires. Right?
No, it's not.
You go, car accidents, marine stuff. I mean, it's all over the place, right? So
so when you look at the term like EPS, like Emergency Protective Services, we're looking at our partners with police and bylaw services and EMS and fire. But for fire services, we look at. We just don't. Yeah, it's not just about fires. It's dumpster fires. It's pulling a cat out of a tree. It's supporting from water rescue to help support that, like special operations trench and collapse and rope and heavy machinery extrication, and the list goes on and on. There's just so much that we do today, and with our partners, we do a great job working together as a unified group. And most calls that we go to, we support each other. There's typically not one call that you wouldn't go where you wouldn't have police and EMS there to help support, and so it's great to have a collaborative team there that works together. But you're right, there's just so much that we do, and the list seems to grow over time, and we do get calls for support, which is great. And if anything, it gets us out in the community, and it's great to have community support and be there to support them.
Okay. This is largely rural recruiting, right? For rural firefighting, volunteer firefighters. Are there differences in serving as a fire service in a rural area as opposed to, say, in the city of Ottawa? What would some of those differences be?
We have a lot of forested areas within our rural communities, and so we have certainly a lucrative an extensive wildland program, and we have 5 brush trucks strategically located within our rural areas because of just that heavy forested population, our density. And it's pretty much the same. There's a lot of high rises downtown. You don't typically have that out in the rural areas, but in our suburban areas where we have some composite stations which house urban and rural firefighters, we have some areas there that are fairly similar to. There's not a lot of differences other than I could just say there's more farming farming extrication.
A lot of brush fires, I bet. A lot of brush fire, right?
Yeah.
Especially this time of year.
Yeah, we get that in the Greenbelt too, but you typically it's not that you would never have one, but downtown Ottawa, it's just not very seldom that you'd ever have a grass fire, a brush fire down there.
So let's say I'm lucky enough. I get called in for the interview. I do well on the test. I on the physical test. I start the process, start to finish. How long does that take?
You're about 8 months.
8 months. Okay.
Yeah, 8 months to a year, I would say. We certainly strive to around the 8 month mark to get you kind of in the station. And when I say 8 months to a year, that's when you actually physically get your pager.
Right.
And you start to receive calls and start to respond as a Ottawa firefighter without restrictions.
Okay. Do I have to travel to do any of this training, or can I do it all in the Ottawa area?
No, it's all within the Ottawa, and that's a great thing about the Ottawa Fire Service is we have the ability to train our own staff. And with the NFPA training that we do, which is kind of entry level, so if you went to Les Cité or Algonquin and took firefighting program, you'd do the same curriculum, which would be NFPA 1001 and 2. We offer that in-house, and we're able to facilitate that and deliver. And of course, the OFM does come in and support from the certification piece to from an examination, or sign off for it, but we're pretty self-sufficient in that regard. And so everything's typically in-house. There are some specialized training, but it doesn't really apply to what we're doing here with recruits, where you may travel outside of the municipality of Ottawa and head down to Toronto maybe. And CPAT was one that that comes to mind. Sometimes if candidates miss CPAT here in Ottawa, they may go down to Toronto or somewhere in the southern Ontario to take CPAT, come back and give us a certificate.
Okay. Todd Horrocks is on the line. He's the Deputy Chief of Rural Operations for the Ottawa Fire Service. Major recruitment effort underway right now for volunteer firefighters for the rural parts of our community. Does that offer a pathway to becoming a full-time firefighter with the Ottawa Fire Service?
It can. Yeah, it can. We're seeing the numbers in our recruit on the urban side that we are selecting some volunteer fighters because they're coming with experience. The level of training and certificates and just that experience. They're from the rural division. They're walking on the floor. Not walk on, but they go through the program and they've already have their NFPA 1001 and 2. And hazmat 472, they have all that training, and so it's a good investment, I think. It's not just Ottawa too. I see that even like Ottawa and other departments, bigger departments out there, are hiring volunteer firefighters throughout Ontario.
Okay.
And career settings, and we certainly have a number of our rural firefighters that are getting hired on the career side.
Just finally, Deputy Chief, I'm just wondering about diversity in hiring. Do you encourage, for example, women applicants, new Canadians, this sort of thing, sir?
Absolutely. Yeah, that is something certainly we try and focus on. And I do realize that, the perception out there is that Ottawa Fire Service is a male-dominated workforce. And we do have a lot of great initiatives that we, like Camp Fit being one, that we really try and promote Camp Fit and, get young women out to try firefighting. And the diversity piece, again, you've heard that analogy of, we want to reflect the community that we serve. And so we certainly try our best to make sure that we provide the information for everybody to give this a try. And we don't turn down applications. We take the best candidates, and diversity and women are right at the top of that list as well. And all of them provide a great whether it be a woman or whether it be a visible minority, they all have their certain traits that help out within the service. So it's great.
All right, sir. Good luck with it.
Great.
Good luck with it. Thank you so much for taking the time. It's greatly appreciated. Very informative for our listeners.
Yeah, thanks so much, Rob.
Bye-bye.
For having me on.
Yeah. Todd Horrocks, Deputy Chief Rural Operations, Ottawa Fire Service. Just kind of going through here what you need. he mentioned, your resume, your cover letter, any certificates, diplomas that you have. 18 years and older, G license, valid G license. You have to live or work in an area that is served by a volunteer fire station in your area. There is a criminal record check, and you need a 5-year driver's abstract, all prerequisite, right at the very get-go. From a Service Ontario center, you got to go into Service Ontario, say, give me a clean driving record for 5 years, basically. So all of that is there, and you can find all of that information at ottawa.ca as well. Very interesting, very interesting. So you want to be a firefighter. Okay, coming up next, all this week, for the rest of the week, we have focus on local tourism and some of the expectations for the tourism sector. A lot of people are worried, people want to do road trips, day trips, these sorts of things. But now the price of gas it's a real budget eater. So we'll check in with a spokesperson from the Tourism Association in Prince Edward County. Coming up, Rob Snow Show City News.
I'm Emily Bertrand, the owner of Royale Equestrian Center. This is Diamond. She's a 10-year-old thoroughbred. She used to be a racehorse and then made the transition to a riding horse. She loves jumping, and she's used for our more advanced students. So we started the farm 14 years ago with my mom and brother. My brother was actually driving by one day and saw the sign, and we applied. There were 60 applicants, and we got it. When we first started, there was not very much here, so our property's about 25 acres, and there was just this 100-year-old barn. And from there, we built onto it. We fixed up one stall at a time, one paddock at a time. We added one horse at a time, and slowly it built into what it is today. Every year, we're improving and trying to continue to build. And most recently, we added 2 shed row barns this year. I love horses. I've been obsessed with horses since I was a little girl. The first time I got to ride, I was 4 years old, and I just loved it. My mom thought it was going to be a phase, and that phase never ended. I kept riding all through high school, and then eventually, started Royale Equestrian Center. It was my dream to always own a farm and to build a place that I could share my passion for horses with others and do the same thing for the kids that the horses did for me. So I absolutely love it. It's a dream come true. COVID hit, that was challenging. I was pretty stressed, especially the first few months, trying to figure out how are we going to navigate all of this. Our business is based on people coming in. We don't make much revenue if there's nobody coming in to ride. So that was really challenging. And then the other aspect of it was how are we going to care for all these horses if we're fully shut down and there's no income coming in. So we worked really hard. Some of our team were so kind to actually just come in and volunteer and help us out. And we made through it. We got through it. It's been hard and a lot of work, but it's also shown us how resilient we can be. So I'm happy with how we're coming out of COVID. Hopefully this is, we're nearing the end of all the shutdowns, but we've, survived it and now we're starting to thrive again, which is great. So we have a great team. We have about 14 coaches, and then we have all our regular barn staff. We have our maintenance manager and crew, and if it weren't for them, we wouldn't be able to do this. It takes a huge amount of people, and then we also have a volunteer program. The volunteer program, it helps with us, especially with our beginner program, so they help with tacking up the horses and caring for the horses when we're really busy, and then they also get to gain some work experience. We take co-op students on. We're quite a busy and vibrant place, and it takes a lot of people to make it work, even through to behind the scenes from our accountants, my family, who are always stepping in to help out. It takes a small village.
The Rob Snow Show returns
on Rogers TV and City News,
101.1 FM
and 1310 AM.
Road trip. Can you afford a road trip? How about if you were to do a road trip and you headed to Prince Edward County? We have Karen Palmer on the line. Economic Development, Karen Palmer, Economic Development Officer, Prince Edward County. Good morning.
Hi there.
Nice to hear from you. How's the tourism industry doing right now in in Prince Edward County. It's huge in Prince Edward County.
That's true. That's true. We are gearing up for the start of the season this coming weekend, and hopefully it'll be a good summer.
Yeah, May 2-4 long weekend, of course, right? So, how worried are you, though, Karen, about the price of gas? For example, Ottawa to Picton is like a little more than 2.5 hour drive. So it's kind of like this perfect day trip or weekender kind of thing. But now, some people are thinking, well, geez, it's also a tank of gas, which is...
It's true.
Right?
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah. So are you a little worried or...
Yeah, we've had a really interesting up and down experience all through COVID. A lot of businesses have really pivoted again. We were lucky. I mean, when the first round of lockdowns happened, we don't rely so much on international travel. So we became a very popular destination in 2020. And I think we sort of held on to that popularity in 2021. And I think we're hoping that, there'll be lots of people who are looking at the price of gas and also the bite at their wallet at the grocery store and sort of saying, maybe I won't do a bigger trip this year. Maybe I'll stay a little more locally, and hopefully they consider Prince Edward County local to where they are.
Well, it would seem that you're so wonderfully located. I mean, you have Ottawa to the east, and then Toronto's not that far away. The larger communities kind of north of Belleville there as well. So you're in a great spot, right?
Yep, we're ideally located, and honestly, we get a lot of traffic from Quebec as well. So
oh, really?
We're very fortunate that way. Yeah.
Okay. What are some of the, in your opinion, like some of the can't miss, must see destinations of Prince Edward County?
Well, I think a lot of people come to us for culture, for beach, for nature, for great food, great wine, lots of great wine, more wine, for sure.
Right.
So we've got a lot of new things that are opening this summer. We've got a new distillery that's coming online this summer called Still Us. Totally, grain to glass, as they say.
Okay.
All handmade. We have a new brewery opening in Bloomfield called All My Friends. Hasn't opened yet. I'm kind of curious to give it a taste when it does. And if you've been to Prince Edward County before and you've either attended a wedding or you've been to the Grange Winery, you might have sipped something from Old Salt Cocktails. They have a new location this summer, so they've actually opened a bricks and mortar location. So still lots of places to get a good drink. We've got a lot of new experiences. We've really doubled down on helping people get on farms because we are an agricultural destination. We're a farming community, and a lot of people are very interested about life on the farm. We've got a lot of arts things happening this summer, lots of places to hear live music, and of course, great food, as always, lots of good restaurants.
And maybe one of the best beaches in the province, right?
That is also true. And I have
Sandbanks. I once did a radio show. Give me the best place to go within 3 hours of here, and I had a bunch of people called and said, you got to go to Sandbanks.
It is true. I mean, the beach is really spectacular, and I think the province is continuing its reservation system. So where we used to have people that got in the car, at the crack of dawn and came down here hoping to get in, now you can kind of plan 5 days in advance, get your reservation so you're guaranteed to be able to get in, and then, leave at a time when it suits you and spend the whole day at the beach if you like, and then, maybe have a nice dinner somewhere before heading home.
I think I may have interrupted you there. I'm sorry if I did that.
That's okay.
It's also this weekend is the welcome weekend, Ameliasburg Heritage Village. Maybe just a word or two about that.
Yeah, so Prince Edward County has a real loyalist kind of heritage. So Ameliasburg is a spot where you can go to get a bit of a flavor of that. It's like a pioneer village.
Right.
So the county was a spot where when the American Revolutionary War was done, people who were still loyal to the crown ended up coming here almost as refugees. And so they often do a little bit of a demonstration of some of the things that you might have experienced had you been here in the loyalist days. So, some old-timey cooking and a lot of ways that they were preserving food and also some indigenous games and sport.
Okay.
Yeah.
Look, so begins the season. I hope it's a great one for you and all the merchants in Prince Edward County and that everybody has a good summer down there, spring and summer. Thank you.
Love to see you.
Okay. Karen Palmer, Economic Development Officer, Prince Edward County. Hey, that's it for the Rob Snow Show for today. Great Sam LaPrade show coming up, including a candidate for mayor and a candidate for city council in this fall's municipal election. She'll tell you more about that right after our noon news update right here on City News.
The Rob Snow Show.
Weekdays at 9 on Rogers TV and City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Number 1 for local news in Ottawa and the Valley.
This program is brought to you by